what if, like, when the spirit leaves the body and breaks through, I guess what you might say, the veil or whatever, but that coming out, like, creates a rip. So when they come back in, that, it's just more open. So, yeah, but there's a healing, and it's really about love, and I think that everybody needs to heal and love themselves. So I think there's a lack of love, but that's coming back.
As we gain awareness and the vibration raises and our frequency raises, we're going to start to see the things that not necessarily are just now appearing because we're also changing, but that they were always there. We just couldn't see it because we didn't match that frequency.
Yes.
And now that the frequency is matching, it's slowly starting to go like this. And then all of a sudden, eventually we're going to be here. And they're like, yeah, I see you now. So I feel like where we're going eventually is going to be like, we're not going to have that disconnection the way we do now, where someone dies and we're like, I can't see them. I don't know where they're at, or are they still alive? We're going to still be in communication because it's going to be more of a normal thing, because when someone passes, they're in a higher frequency. And if we're getting close to that frequency, it's going to be a lot easier to communicate. When science and spirituality meet, we're going to propel so much more forward than we've ever gone.
I feel like it's already happened. I mean, there are.
Yeah, it's happening now. And it's just, for so long we've been in this materialist, we got to cut you open, we got to remove this, and here now we have people like healing themselves when they shouldn't have been healed, from cancer. They had tumors all over their body, and then all of a sudden the tumors vanish, and the doctors have no idea how it was possible. Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Christian, and today I have a special guest. I have Leslie. She is from the UAP Society and Hello Alley Discord and YouTube channels, and she's a moderator for both. And today we're going to talk about consciousness, spirituality. But first, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with all this. What brought you into this field?
Good question. I feel like I do feel definitely like I was led down this
path.
Yes, very much so. It was very subtle and over years and years of my life, actually. So I think it started pretty much with conspiracies, believe it.
Yeah, I get it. Yep.
So I was I was what you would call a conspiracy theorist. I was called that often, Of course, I was like, they're not all theories, and like it's funny because now, really, I don't feel like a lot of them have been proven otherwise, like as facts. But anyway, but so that was really a lot of my focus was on that. And I was very proactive and like wanting to make change and all this kind of stuff. So like a lot of my energy went towards truth and trying to figure out truth, and I was always trying to figure that out. So anyway, I've always been one to like search for truth, a truth seeker, I guess you could say. So eventually I kind of started channelers, I guess, would be one of the first things. I could back it up because I did read a book by Betty J. Eady originally, and that's what I was introduced to the near-death experience. And she's actually kind of famous, cool, I guess, with the near-death experience. She's one of the older ones that have been like
I'll have to look that up.
Put her story out there early on. So yeah, her book is really short and simple, but so much information, and there was really a very detailed near-death experience. So that kind of opened me up. And right at the same time as that, I did read another book about energy work. And then, I don't know, life went on, for me. And that kind of all got not forgotten about, just kind of put in the back of my brain. And I went on like every other human doing like slave life stuff.
Slave life. Yeah, I feel you there. Slave life, for real.
So anyway, eventually I was, I guess struggling with just finding are feeling, I guess, joy or happy or satisfaction in life, and I was just trying to I wanted everything to be okay. And so, I came across Abraham Hicks would be, I guess,
Yep.
the first
Okay.
channeler that I
Yeah.
came across. And everything she was saying, it just totally resonated. And so I got really set on okay, I'm gonna do this. And so, I bought her book as well, but I was watching all her videos. And I was just feeling it, man. I was my vibration, which she talks a lot about vibration, was
Yeah.
high. And it's really easy to do, actually. I mean, I I fell right into doing the stuff. But I mean, I did absorb everything she was saying, all this.
Hmm.
But that opened me to, I remember hearing or reading in her book, which is Law of Attraction. I think it's titled The Law of Attraction. So, about Seth. Do you know Seth? Seth
Yeah.
Speaks.
Hmm.
And so that I had started by this time going to bookstores and collecting books. Oh, and I was very obsessed. I say obsessed, but it pretty much was obsessed. But I was
No, I get you. Trust me.
in
Trust me.
near death experience podcast. And so
Same.
literally I've probably heard uh, near 700 or so, I don't know, near death experiences and or spiritual experiences. But I would say mostly near death experiences. That's really what I focused on a lot. The channeled stuff that I was already doing the near death experience. I was stopping at thrift stores, like bookstores, used bookstores, and looking in the spiritual section. And I felt like books were just finding me. I'm very much with the
Yep.
synchronicity. I was on that train fast. It started
Same.
with 1111 for me. So a couple years ago, I'm starting to see 1111 everywhere. It's coinciding with my increased of vibration and frequency. I'm I, I've had multiple, I guess, interesting experiences. I do feel
No, no.
we're literally interfacing with the universe and our thoughts. Everything is our mind and our thoughts, and we're creating with the way we feel and think and what we're focusing on, what we're ruminating about. And or it's, if you can
Yeah.
control, you can steer everything. But I feel everybody's unconsciously doesn't realize that. I shouldn't say everybody, and I don't want to bulk any, but I feel it's something that people need to learn
Right.
or somehow figure out,
Yeah,
because
I
it
get it.
could change the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are
No, that's
sympathy.
accurate.
We are love. We are a part
Yeah, and
of.
science is starting to catch up now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I have a similar beginning story too, so it's just I totally understand where you're coming from. So yeah, near death experiences, you have millions of people having going through these experiences, different walks of life, the accidents or intentional circumstances that brought them to an NDE, and they're sharing similar information about what it's like being on the other side, that we're all connected. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And we have scientists and doctors are now actively studying this and they have data to prove that there is something going on. So they're actually taking it seriously. So I think that's pretty awesome for those who are skeptic and they're like, where's the proof and stuff. And it's just interesting because when my favorite NDE experiences, not that I find anything wrong with anyone who's normal and had an NDE. My favorites are the skeptics or the scientists or the doctors that end up having an NDE and they're like, "Oh my god." They're like, "It's real. It's
Yes.
real." And then they try to share with their peers and they're like, "They don't understand
Yes.
what I'm talking about, but it's real." And those are my favorites.
Yeah. And there's a lot out there as far as people who have credentials of either I mean, multiple people who, why would they go out there and just lie about this? You know what I mean? And I don't know.
Yeah.
And then certain the healing aspect too is another really interesting thing. There's a lot of people out there that are, end up being healed after they were like
Yeah.
really sick. And I think what I think with that is that
Should
the
have been
light.
impossible.
There's something with the light.
Hmm.
This is what I figured out on light, and then light is kind of, if you think about it, it's like information, like
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
consciousness. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, you're onto something. I actually can touch on that too. Go ahead, continue.
yeah, but I feel like it it's a lot of how what we're creating with our mind. That I was gonna go somewhere with that, but what were you gonna say? Did you have something to say?
I actually have a book here that I read by Barbara Brodsky. It's called Presence, Kindness, and Freedom. And she was a channeler. I think she's still alive. She's a channeler, and she didn't start channeling or get into any of this until after she had some kind of a. She gave birth, and then all of a sudden she went deaf, and she was very frustrated with herself. She was very, like when you have a disability, like that's very frustrating, and you could be very angry at life and everything. I can
Mm-hmm.
completely understand that. And then all of a sudden, one day, she says that a being showed up in her kitchen, and it freaked her out, and she thought she was losing her mind, and she went to peek again, and he's still there waiting, and he's like, "Hello, my name is Aaron, and we pre-planned this meeting to do this, and would you like to communicate?" So after some time and communicating with Aaron, he started explaining all kinds of information. So nobody else sees him. She sees him, and she translates, and she convert. There's different kinds of channelers out there, and she'll just send his message. And the whole book is cool because it's written in a way where it's not like you read in chapters. It's actually questions being asked and then Aaron answering.
Uh-huh.
And so they ask all kinds of what happens when we die, what happens, all of this stuff. And his introduction is about who he is. And he says, "My name is Aaron, and I'm a being of light." And he says, "You are a being of light and substance." And he says, "When you cross over, when you physically die, you will become light just like me. And I no longer physically incarnate. I don't have a need to anymore. But I have been on Earth for like 400 years, like incarnating, and I've had different life experiences."
Hmm.
And he goes on to answer all kinds of questions from how do you transcend anger? Like, how do you balance energy of anger, betrayal, like those kinds of emotions and
Huh.
things we have to do with. But he distinctly, just like you mentioned, talks about light, that we are light, that everything is light, source, God, whatever you want to call it. And when we come here, we have the illusion of solidity, but nothing is actually truly solid. It's all made of light, or a hologram, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And that's what a hologram is. It's light
Right.
energy.
Which
It's
this
all
made me
energy.
think of the human design. Are you familiar with that?
Oh,
The human design. So this is also channeled information, but I guess it's using like astrology, and like it's this chart of like your birthday, where you're at, the exact time of birth, and all this stuff. But
mm-hmm.
it's basically, it's, I don't know, but it's pretty interesting. But yeah, so it
Yeah.
says, that we basically have crystals in us, and definitely in our pineal gland, but
Yep.
that light basically, and its information, and like it we're all absorbing, this through our bodily vehicles or whatever, and that because we have these crystals, or also like diamonds within each one of us. We all are different and unique, and have different like aspects of us, because we're just unique and individual in our own ways. And so when light comes through, we filter, and it comes out different for everybody. So like everybody's
Yeah.
experiencing something different, and everybody's, something different's coming from everybody. We have a video that'll be coming out soon on Hello Alley YouTube, on the human design, which was interesting. But I found out that I was a projector, which is like 20% of the population. That we're gonna help like lead everybody out of the old, which I want to say like 3D and like control and all that stuff, all the stuff that I used to focus on, like, and then I'm fully aware
Yeah.
of, but now I don't focus on because of law of attraction. And I'm aware, like, if I'm going to give my energy and thoughts to that, I'm actually feeding into it, even if I don't want it. Do you understand
Yeah.
that aspect?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm
He
practicing.
talks about that too.
Yeah. So, like,
He says that the universe never says no to you. It always answers, and that's whether it's good
oh my gosh, I see.
or
So
negative. Yeah.
I just have fun with it, and I want to like hone in and like get really good at it
Hmm.
and like really start to like manifest awesome, great things, which I feel like is already happening on a small scale, but like my focus isn't fully there and all that with that. But I feel like it's totally doable if I could just, but I have a lot going on in personal life and,
Right.
whatever. But so this is like, I do spend a lot of time just learning and taking information in and like, I don't stop. I don't watch television. Like I no longer feed my mind or my aura or my field with negative or fear mongering type stuff. So I don't watch like the news. So a lot of people would probably
Yeah.
judge me for that. I'm sure, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, I realize that there's awful things going around, but I mean, even when I did watch the news to find this stuff out, I mean, there was nothing I personally could do. Now, granted, if I, end up being very well off, multi-million, whatever, I'm gonna definitely be somebody that's gonna help and however I can,
Right.
if I can, you know what I mean? Like, so for
Yeah.
now, it's
That's how
like
I feel.
prayers and good thoughts for them. That's what I can do, and I think that's powerful from what I understand through near death experiencers and everything else, like prayer, intention and all that is what we're doing. And if we're not
Mhm.
realizing that, then our monkey mind or whatever you might want to call it is just like ego or it's just taken over. And then that is what we're programmed. We get programmed by society and
Mhm.
our parents and depending on how, challenged your parents had it when they were growing up, like and depending on the
Yeah.
amount of like
They don't even
generational
realize
stuff.
it,
Yeah, so
and they bring you up
yeah,
with that
and
stuff. Yeah.
right. And so and a lot of generations aren't, they're still not healed and could, need to figure out, stuff.
Shadow
But
work.
I do think there is something going on with consciousness right now. There is like a change, there's a shift happening, and I feel like
It's weird, isn't it?
it is very
It's
weird.
weird. It's like everywhere.
Like,
Yeah, it can be like weird watching. Like again, I've never watched the news. Like people have given me flack for it because I'm like, what's that? I'm like, what are they talking about? And they're like, you don't know? They're like, what's going on? I was like, even during COVID, I was like, I was
yeah.
like, whatever. And I never got sick or anything like that, or maybe I did and I didn't even realize it. But um, not that it's not
Our
real or anything, but
bodies
I
are
was just like,
amazing, like
yeah,
they're amazing machines, bio machines. So yeah, I don't know. Everybody gets all worried about everything when really, like it's our thoughts really that make us sick.
yeah. Yeah, and you actually touched on something earlier about um, like the body healing, especially people who got sick or had something, and then they had an NDE, and then they miraculously healed. Um, there is another couple of books that I've read by Jeffrey Long. He's a doctor, an oncologist, actually studying near-death experiences,
Sounds
and they actually
familiar.
had a movie. Yeah, they had a movie just come out called After Death, which I still haven't seen yet. I plan to watch it. I want to see it in theaters, but he's in it. And one of the things he has, one of the sections in his book is miracle healings, like people that should not have healed whatsoever, according to doctors and the scientific community. There's no way in hell they should heal. And all of a sudden, they have this miraculous 100% healing, and sometimes even more. And what I mean by that is that a lot of these people come back with psychic abilities, and the doctors are like, some of them, not all of them, but some of them can't handle it, and they're just like, I guess it was a misdiagnosis. I don't know. It
So I
was,
just had a
we
thought.
missed a.
I just had a thought like that I never really thought about before. But what if, like, when the spirit leaves the body and
Mhm.
breaks through, I guess what you might say the veil or whatever, but that coming out like creates a rip. So when they come back in, that, it's just more
that
open.
that door's still open. Yeah, that's what I think happens. It
Yeah.
just opens you up, and if you want to think about it from a scientific vessel body kind of way, also like it creates more neural pathways in the brain. And I believe more in filter theory, but scientists are now starting to use not materialist science, but filter theory just means that the brain is more like a radio,
That's
and
how
it's
I feel.
receiving consciousness. Yeah, it's receiving consciousness,
Filter
but
and
then you'll have science.
receiver and antenna.
Yeah,
It's like it's all
yeah,
it's all that.
exactly. And people were like, well, we know you could do this to the brain and the person will seem like to have an out of body experience. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, if you rip wires out of a radio, it's gonna act weird, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's still a tool, but that's how I think about it. And we have, for our skeptics out there, people were like, oh, there's no proof and stuff. And there is a lot of data on this already that they're already formulating. The trouble is that when they try to hand this data off to the other skeptical scientists or doctors, they don't even want to look because they're like, I know it's wrong, so I'm not even going to look. Which is, in my opinion, I'm like, you're not a real scientist if you're not going to take in the data, even if it means you're wrong. But there's something also called veridical evidence, and veridical evidence is when this is for the people that don't know. Um, when someone has like an out of body experience, whether or not it was from an NDE or not, doesn't matter. But when they have an out of body experience and they can recount situations, conversations that were held far away from their body, and you have witnesses who are like, there's no other way you could have known that because nobody was there. It was just me and her or him or whatever. And they will count to them, the information sometimes is weird. It's like, yeah, grandma was there and she was also smoking a cigarette, which is weird because I know she doesn't smoke. And then you tell grandma and grandma's freaking out. Like, how does she know that?
Hmm.
She was in the operating room. Like, what?
Right.
There's no way she could have known that.
Exact
So that counts as,
conversations. Yeah.
yeah. And that's why they're taking it so seriously. And it's just amazing because there are a lot of cases like that,
It
a
makes me
lot
think
of
of the
cases.
past life, the kids remembering past lives. I mean, it's a little
Yeah.
offshoot of that.
They're studying that.
Can go back, like they can go on what a child will say and
Mm-hmm.
go to the places and figure out, they can find the evidence of these people and how they died,
Yeah.
and it match up the story and
Yep.
everything else. And
And for the people that
wow.
don't know, that's the facility that's actually studying that is DOPS, is the Division of Perceptual Studies, and they have the director who's in charge of that facility now. He actually goes out to meet children. They have a episode on Netflix where they show him. I forgot the name of the show on Netflix, but you can type in near death or something, and I'm sure it'll come up on the Netflix search. But the second or third episode, he's in it, and he's going out to these
Are you talking about
children who are
children
like
past
really,
life? Like
yeah,
remembering past
hmm
life or near death experiences in children?
past life,
Okay.
past life. Sorry, and it's crazy. These kids are like some of these kids under 5, just with the detail. And he says it's important when children start talking about this that they have a name, something that they can research or look it up. And to test them, they'll take in like multiple images, the real picture of the family that they said they used to belong to,
Mm-hmm.
and or places or the house or whatever, mixed with fake images meant to, like, if the kid is lying or just
Right.
making this up.
I saw anyway one
And
specific researcher, yeah, and how that was
yeah,
how he did all that. Yeah, we might have seen it.
and
I don't know. Or you might know
yeah,
what you're
it
talking
might have been. And the kid got like 5 for 5. He got the mother, the father, the house, the park. It was crazy. I
It
was
is
like,
wild, yeah.
and it's just like that's why they're studying
And
that
also the
information.
people who research, the children's near death experiences is I feel like
Yeah,
further evidence as well, because it's children and they don't
they're not
have,
influenced.
yeah, they don't have
They're
like
not
a
fully
life of
influenced yet.
information to like relay back or whatever. So yeah, and so there's a lot to that as well. But and it makes me think, just talking about the whole past life thing brings me to like, that everything seems to be all at once. Like
Yep.
past life isn't in the past, because apparently, according to near death
It
experiencer
gets weird.
and
Yeah,
channelers and
every
everyone, that time isn't, it's just like a construct
real.
of this era of where we're at here on Earth, I guess. But it's not real.
Yeah, yeah. And Bashar actually phrases it really well. He says that everything's happening all at once. That's what they also report in near-death experiences, and that what we perceive as the past or the future is also happening concurrently, happening at the same time. And what we would call a past life, while technically it could be a connection to you or what he calls the oversoul, and the oversoul is kind of like a hand. So if you look at your hand, this is Leslie, this is Christian, this is Joshua, this is whatever, and this is still you, but this is your area of focus, Leslie. And then whenever you leave the body, you can connect with all of that again and remember, oh, this is who I really am, and you remember all of these lives that were happening or still happening right now. So it's really interesting.
Right.
um
I have considered,
but
and
yeah.
I'm just like thinking out loud now, but that, possibly we've all been, everything, each other. Like, once we
Yep.
go back, like, we're connected, like, because of basically the same thing. Like, so,
Yeah, you or me. I mean, and that's what people talk about in NDEs. They'll say like, I literally became everyone I've ever experienced in my life. And even in some cases, there was one guy who had an NDE, and he said that he was like, you could ask me any question about any person on the planet, and I knew everything about their lives. I was them. And he also, there's another person who actually got very emotional in his NDE because he thought in life he considered himself unworthy. He thought we were a cancer to the world. We're going to destroy everything. Just very negative outlook on life. And he got brain cancer.
mm,
And in his NDE, he
well,
was shown that he gave himself
yes,
the brain cancer because of his outlook,
yeah,
and his belief system pushed him in that direction. And he saw that thoughts are also energy and everything is energy. And
yeah,
he said he was in like a Merkaba of some kind, and he said everyone that has ever existed or will exist was there. And he starts crying and he says, you may not even believe this, but you were there, and everyone listening was there too, and you all showed me the light of myself, and he's like, I'm sorry, and he just starts crying while he's saying this, but he's like, that's what happened. You were all there, and you showed me the greater part of myself, and it was a really, really good ending. I'll
I
share it
feel
on
like
the
I
UAP
honestly feel
Society.
like I might have seen it already.
And hell, Allie, you probably have. I mean, I've gone through thousands of these. I don't even know. I lose track.
Yeah, because I was,
It's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like, I don't know, like, so yeah, like the whole macro to the micro, like, we are connected, and like everything is like that, like everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look at it, it's just
Yeah.
wild
Yep.
how that is. And then as far as like,
It's like a fractal.
yeah, and then I feel like the duality here is necessary, like the
Yep.
contrast of, dark
The
or light
school.
and negative or positive, or, so, but we, as co-creators, creators in our own right, have the ability, if we can understand it, to like steer and create better things. And if everybody understood
Right.
that, it would like create a ripple effect that everybody would be like, okay, well,
Yeah. That's that's
and
also what they share too.
yeah, I don't know. So, but of course, I'm constantly trying to just, yeah, keep that focus. But I have everything in my life, like in my real
Yeah, we're
life,
still human.
I should say, like, we're not all. I'm not talking to people about this, so you know
Right.
that's why I'm here doing this with the videos. I feel like, because not everybody wants to hear it, but for those out there who want to hear it, I'm like, I want to share, because yeah, that's the only way it's gonna get out, is by people
Yeah.
getting together and talking about like these type of
We have to
things.
keep it going. I
Like,
feel like when we do that, it like raises the collective consciousness, and then everyone starts doing it, and then we're on this wavelength,
yeah,
and
I
then
can like feel the
all of a
vibration now. It's just like, like
yeah.
it's exciting,
And
and it's like awesome.
I I tell people, I'm like, I refer to them as the powers that were, because I don't want to say the powers that be, because I don't think they're
Oh, I love
in
that.
control anymore. The powers that were,
Yeah.
and it's like they cannot fight this. Like you can't fight a wave from hitting the shore. It's just you're gonna stand there all day, you're gonna get sandy. It's just not gonna work. And it's just, and it's like when I see them try to fight or the bill getting denied or whatever, it's like they're trying so hard because the, like, the tsunami of consciousness is coming, and it's just like once it hits, it's like we're gonna start seeing the snowball effect of like all this positivity and all these positive changes that we make, and it's gonna change the world. It's already happening. Like I'm already seeing the positive. I know people focus on a lot of negative, but I agree with Bashar, and he says that. And for those that don't know, Bashar is an entity that comes through Daryl Anka. He channels, claims to be ET being, and he says that it has to happen like this. The way, and Terence McKenna says this too. Like when he said the mushrooms, it showed me that um, whenever you evolve or get to the next stage, it's not going to be this like completely smooth process. It's going to look messy. It's going to look crazy. And Bashar says that this happens because um, you have to get all the ugly stuff out from under the carpet and deal with it, because it's not, you can't, where we're going, there's no room for that stuff. You gotta work through, you have to do the shadow work. You have to face it. And it gives you, he calls it the rubber band analogy. It's like you're going so far into the darkness, and the further you're going to go into the light when it finally breaks
Yeah, that
because of
makes sense.
all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with it. But he also says that having more awareness doesn't mean you don't see the negative things. He says you become more aware of the negative things, but that also gives you an opportunity to make a choice. So I agree with that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of like, you look out the window, and even though you may see ugliness, it doesn't necessarily mean it's affecting you directly, but it gives you a choice to choose within yourself energetically. Do I want to participate with that, or what could I do differently? And by doing something differently, you give others the opportunity to see you doing differently,
Yes.
and it gives them the choice to make a different choice.
Yes. Oh, I was gonna say preach, but
Oh, sorry.
no, I'm feeling that 100%. Yes. Anyway, um, so yeah, what about the map of consciousness? Are you familiar with that?
That one, no.
No, it's David R. Hawkins, and anyway, it I feel like it correlates with the chakras, but it's like the frequency. And I'm
Hmm.
sure you've seen like frequency charts, and so it's like
Yeah,
all the different emotions from like shame being the lowest.
yeah,
And then,
and they're associated with color.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah.
Light.
Anyway, but I feel like like there's other channelers that talk about this too, but there's a lot of people that I guess they were in like we're coming to like it's the heart chakra, the green ray. I've
Hmm.
heard it called as well, but so it's we're expanding it through the chakras almost, but it's like on the whole as far as like ourselves, but also like I feel like the universe has a chakra system. I don't know what I'm saying.
No, I think that's accurate. No, that's accurate actually. And also when in Reiki class, um, and I'm not surprised by this. I thought that I was like, of course I knew that, and that's I we learned the main chakras, red to violet and everything. But then she started to talk. My teacher was talking about the ones that are outside the body. There's different bodies outside of you. It's kind of like an onion. It's like a layered onion, and what's interesting is that also correlates with some near-death experiences. One in particular, Jeff Tolley, he had an NDE, and he was very suicidal, and he tried to take his own life, injection pills simultaneously. And he said he got to see his energetic bodies that are not in the physical, that you can't see them normally. And he says we have an emotional body and we also have a mental body. And he got to see his emotional and mental body like dark clouds. It was like actually visible to him.
Yeah.
And it was just like ugly, really weird darkness. And he got to see that that's what he was doing to himself as well. That there are these levels, these layers, again, like an onion,
Yeah.
that are there. And I think everything reflects that. Even the earth has its own chakra system, I think, like
Yeah.
energy
And we're all
system. So I
feeding
think,
into that.
yeah,
We're all like a cell. we're each like a cell, and then everything is energy. And so, yeah, whatever we're connecting to, like, I feel like the more we think about something, we're almost creating like these energetic cords to whatever we
Exactly.
think about.
Hmm.
So whether it's like negative thinking or positive thinking, or like something you're trying to, manifest, consciously, or whatever it is, like you just created this, that you strengthen the cord by the focus, basically. And so that's how it
Right.
all happens, is all over the place, because I'm looking at my notes, which are basically.
No, 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 it's okay. Like that's how this stuff goes, and this is how I talk. Because I've gotten in these conversations have gotten me into trouble too. Like, or even me just being me. Sometimes I'll disassociate um, from normal human stuff, and it offends people sometimes, and I don't mean to offend them, and I'm like, "Oops, sorry." But also, I think that it's crazy who I'm surprised by. I work in IT and I've talked to people on the phones, and sometimes I have this like little test where I'll bring up certain things or certain topics sometimes, very light though, like something that's not too deep. And then sometimes I'll like kind of like you're fishing, and then it just you catch one, and then all of a sudden the client on the phone is like, "Oh my god, I love this stuff, consciousness, near death experience," and I'm surprised because they're working in a field that you would never think they would be looking into this stuff, but then they are, and it surprises me it does and it doesn't. It surprises me, but then it doesn't because I know everyone's waking up. But at the same time, to to talk to strangers over the phone who are just like, "Oh my god," and they're like, "Yeah," or "I had a near death experience." That's happened. I've talked to clients on the phone who've had an NDE, and they told me some details about that. I've spoken to an EMT about that stuff, so it's all real. Um, but I know we're jumping all over the place, but it's okay. That's how these talks go. But
Yeah.
what about the ETs or NHIs, whatever you want to call them? How did you get into that stuff? Because I know it all connects, but like, what happened to you?
Well, I've been a believer from forever. I mean, I never did consider it not to be a possibility that there were,
Right.
other,
Same.
because
Same.
it wasn't just us, but and I fully had it figured out before I like got into spirituality. I was pretty much settled on the fact that, there is a creator who created
Right.
me, and that creator also created all the aliens or whatever else is out there, and that's pretty much where I settled. I was brought up in religion to an extent, but I didn't go to my parents didn't go to church, but my father did very much study the Bible and all that, and in his own right would preach to us kids, like, and so it
Right.
was kind of like, and hell and fear and all that was like used a lot, as far as like for like control. I don't know. I don't even know if it was control. I mean, like, because we're pretty free kids to do whatever, but but yeah, I don't know what it was, but he obviously the fear aspects of which I don't, obviously with near death experiences that does not really exist. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's instilled, like, I don't know, humans somehow made fear be a part of God or source somehow, but I thought,
Right.
that's just not true. Um, there may I think that everything is one, the dark and the light, and it's the contrast, it's the separation.
No, I get where you're going with this.
100% don't agree with like murder or awful things happening to be, anything.
Yeah.
Not saying any of that stuff is okay at all. And I personally would not choose that, and so I hope that, one day nobody would ever choose to do something that horrible. But there, I'm going off now, but hurt people. So that's another big
Yeah.
thing that, and I feel like,
That is a really good way to put it in
yes. And
a
so, like,
short phrase.
there's
That
a
is
lot of
exactly,
healing
yeah.
that needs to happen. You know what I mean? So I feel like, and as a whole, like, people are on that path, and, I personally am on the path. Thank goodness nothing too horrible will ever happen to me in my life, but like, I still have like trauma and different things from just like, I don't know, life can be traumatic, in different points in I guess. But so yeah, but there's a healing, and it's really about love and I think that everybody needs to heal and love themselves. So I think there's a lack of love, but that's coming back.
What you were saying about the heart chakra and the love and everything is, I started finding in abductee cases when they were being regressed. I read a lot of Dolores Cannon. They're saying whenever she's progressing someone to go back into an experience because everything is happening now. And she talks about that too, that if everything's happening now, what I find most interesting, when she regresses someone who was taken, they're able to speak to the being as if it's happening right now, like as if the event is happening. So they can actually direct questions to the being, and then the being will start talking to the person. And she talks about
Oh,
sometimes the tapes will be at weird static and like weird phenomena starts happening when she's regressing them. And she mentioned, and the beings are talking about this level of understanding that we're slowly coming to understand, that we have to learn how to be more loving towards each other, and
yeah,
that um, technically we're eternal beings. So even though we see the darkness and experience it,
yeah.
not that
Like
it's okay and we don't wish that on anybody,
this
but
is
it's a part of learning. It's a
yeah,
part
and
of the
like
growth.
once we're on the
And
other
this,
side, it was
yeah,
like nothing. Like
you're like, oh yeah, that was just a
I
play I
totally
was a
get
part of,
it. Yeah.
and it's, and I know that there are people in pain. I know that people have lost someone, and it's challenging to deal with. But at the same time, I believe that there is a reality to this that we're starting to understand now. And
Earth School and
it,
Dolores
yeah,
also says the Earth School as well.
yeah,
Mhm.
her school.
Yeah,
Yep, that's pretty much what it
yeah.
is. And not that it makes the pain go away, but I feel like, in my opinion, at least in my experience, it makes it a bit easier. Like, losing someone is hard, but at the same time, I know that they're not annihilated. I've had an out of body experience myself.
Oh
So,
man, they're
like, when
like
you
having
have
a
that,
blast. They're yeah, they are totally fine, and
yeah,
they want everybody that's still here to be okay. But that's for
yeah,
sure. Like, there's nobody like wanting anybody to like stay grieving or like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
they,
no,
the purpose. I feel like the reason we're here is to find out, who we truly are, and maybe the conspiracy part of me thinks, and I mean, I think a lot of people might agree that I feel like there has been a purposeful like um hold or trying to keep society or humanity, at large, like from
suppressed, yeah,
suppressed, yes, from growing spiritually. You know what I mean? Like disconnected and just fed all this stuff, and which is all low vibrational stuff, which it's hard to grow spiritually in low frequency, low vibration, like information that's being like shoved down everybody's throat. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah, because everything's so challenging right now. We have like this, like the economy is like very like is in shambles. It's like groceries are super expensive. It's, you got to work a job. It's hard to like maintain a focus on spirituality sometimes, even in my life, because you just hit with like bills and you're just like, what do
yeah,
I do?
I do like
But
no matter
yeah,
what, that everything really is okay though. Like it seems like
yeah,
to me like everything always works out. You know what I mean? Like
yep, yep.
even if you
That's what
are
I
really
find. Like,
stressing really bad over things, like they still work out. So that's a good
yeah,
thing. But I feel like if you can
and
focus on trying to keep it positive, like you're gonna make that working out even better. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, I find myself I catch myself now, like when I think a certain way, and I try to observe my thoughts, not react, because it's so easy to react to like, God damn it, like this happened or whatever. But also understanding that circumstances are like fundamentally neutral. And depending on how I react, I know I keep saying Bashar, but he has like some of the best like analogies and phrases, but he'll say it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens. And depending on how you feel or associate a feeling to a circumstance is what you'll get
yeah,
out of
it's
it.
all like
So,
perspective.
yeah,
Every
exactly.
so yeah, and you can
Sorry, my cat is like
yeah,
on my lap.
you can literally change your perspective or try to find a positive, more positive perspective, and if you can't, like I think acceptance is like the obvious like go to. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
And forgiveness too. Like
yeah,
some people don't, not just other people, but themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it does start with each individual working on themselves, which I guess I would want to like press that, that
Yeah.
everybody just realize who and what they are, and that you are light and love, and to love yourself, forgive yourself.
Hmm.
Like, we're here, and apparently this is one of the hardest places to come to, and we all
Yeah.
apparently chose to come here before we incarnate.
Yeah.
And like and like we're like super bright lights on the other side, and like people,
And it
like
makes
we have
your light
spirit
brighter from
team.
what I'm
We
hearing.
each have, multiple like spirit guides, guardian angels,
Yep.
what the whole works with each of us individually. Like, I've heard we could have anywhere from like, 5 to 8 spirit guides, or just people who are, I say people, but like spirits who are there to support you through this life. And like, yeah, so it's pretty awesome. And whenever you start realizing all that, it makes things just your perspective, I guess, on everything changes. And it also becomes a bigger perspective. Like, you're not so narrow minded thinking about, all the stuff you did before. It's like, it's just more
Yeah, the
exciting.
trivial material stuff,
Yeah.
or like your normal human stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot more fun. Speaking of the channelers and all that, do you know of they're they're kind of new to me, but they're going to be guests on Hello Allie's YouTube coming
Oh,
up
that's
as
cool.
well. But speaking from source, it's a duo of channelers,
Oh, that's
AJ
cool.
and Thomas, I think it's, yeah. So
Oh,
that's
I have
coming
heard
up.
of them. There's still
I'm
so
really
many
excited.
I don't know of, but
Yeah, so
they
that's
actually
going to
have
be
a
fun.
what's it called? They have a show on Gaia called Channelers, and they have a bunch of different channelers like together, and they're all being interviewed separately, which is really cool. They have Bashar. They have this other woman that was shown
Pretty
on
sure I'm
UAP Society. I forgot her name, but she's awesome. She's the older woman with the gray hair, short.
a channeler.
I'll Yeah, I forgot her name. I'll
Oh,
put it up
Suzanne
on screen. Or
Geisman is that, or is,
I think so.
uh-huh.
I think so. She channels with her eyes open,
There's
which
so
is
many
different, but is
channelers. I mean, have you
yeah,
noticed how that's just like, I
yeah. It
mean,
just it
it
exploded.
did.
I've actually had an experience where it felt like a couple of times where it felt like something was trying to come through, and it frightened me. Like the first time, because I wasn't even looking at into this stuff at this point, but I was in the car, and then it felt like, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt like a presence, like all right here, and then it felt like if I let go, I don't know how else to describe it. If I just let go, it would come through me and start talking. And I did go to a medium once, and she's like, you can channel, right? Like, she's like, you have the ability to channel, but you're scared of it. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. I was like, and there were times where that energy came back again. And this is when I lived by myself, and I had a corgi. And the dog wouldn't come near me whenever I felt that way. He didn't bark, but he was just like,
Uh-huh.
he would back up. And then if I try, and he was always attached to me. So it was weird when I tried to get closer, he would like move back. He was like, what is that?
Huh.
And it made me more scared because I was like, why are you freaking out? It's freaking me
Yeah, it would
out.
make me like question.
And
I would question, just because, why is the dog? But I mean, if it was, I guess it depends on what the message, did the message come through or no?
no,
Oh,
it's almost like I got in my own
it
way.
almost happened.
But
Okay.
yeah, but I
I've tried the
have
automatic
done
writing.
really. I was going to ask about your personal experiences.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I've tried the automatic writing, and I think, I liked what came out, but I feel like at this point, because of my research and like everything that the indies channelers, Seth Speaks, I can't speak highly enough about that. I don't know if I went a little further into that, but yeah, the Seth Speaks, the eternal validity of the soul. That's the name of this book, and it's like this 400 and something page book, but and it's kind of the same. Like, they'll ask questions, they'll be back and forth, but it'll say like what
Hmm.
Seth says, but it basically explains like literally everything.
Yep.
Everything.
Yep.
So I'm just like, and it just makes so much sense. And like, Yeah, so like I highly recommend that. Anyway, so yeah, Seth Speaks. God, there was something
Personal
else I was
experiences,
going to tell you,
anything.
but I forgot. Anyway, moving on.
Have you ever had any kind of like sightings, or have you
Oh,
had
personal
any
experience.
supernatural?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
hmm. Yeah, I would say we were speaking about the whole like journey and how we got here and how, I am
Hmm.
where, so it started with the conspiracy theory stuff, which I think basically opens you up. So I feel like that was a part of how I ended up here, because without me being open minded to all that, which I was already like, you know, judged by people who didn't want to believe a word of any of that stuff, you know what I mean? Like, or in my
Right. Yeah.
physical life. So, and, eventually, I just stopped telling everybody stuff, and I was just like, whatever. And so, then I found myself going into the whole law of attraction and channelers, and the obsession with the near death experience, and so researching that, like, to the most I could with the time I had, you know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
in the midst of that, which was around 2020 when everything was going down, which I feel like correlates with a lot of people, by the way. Like, there's something when COVID and everything happened, that's like some
Yeah.
sort of like catalyst for a lot of people, a spiritual
Switch.
awakening and like
Yeah.
stuff happening. But I tend to go all over the
It felt like the beginning
place.
of. It feels like the big. It feels like the beginning of a countdown.
Yeah,
Like
Jeanette
happened. It was
Byro, who
like
I
boom.
follow, she's a medium and channeler, and she also had a near-death experience. Who in hers, she talks about the blueprint, like how we have blueprints and like all this plan, and so yeah, it is like a Earth school and all this stuff. So like, anyway, I was going off about her, but what I was gonna say was like, yeah, so around 2020, I was deeply into like I have, I don't know, probably 50 spiritual books of like a combination of channelers, NDE, past life regression, like all the different stuff, like I have I don't really have any books heavily on, aliens and all that, which there are some that I
Mm.
want to reach out, but they're more connected to like the consciousness and spirituality aspect, which is how
Right. Right. Same.
that's where I'm coming from with the aliens. Like, it's all the same,
Same.
so I don't know. Uh but what I was gonna say is I did have one experience with I guess you would call like with a spirit, and which I think I say think, but I pretty much know that it was a child that I miscarried. I was like 10 weeks pregnant, and so it
Hmm.
was very early on. It was an early miscarriage. It was right at the time where you would you're okay to start announcing to people, because there is a risk anywhere from when you first are pregnant to, I guess, the 10 or 12 week mark. I can't remember, but anyway, so it was a sad moment for me. I was expecting, and so, but I did accept it when it happened. Like, and I already had one child, and who was young, and a lot going on there, and I just went on with life. You know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
I pretty much like just feel like there's a reason for everything. I've kind of always lived my life that way. Like, I just accepted it. I didn't really like get hung up on like why or what, thinking something,
Hmm.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I wasn't like having some sort of like not PTSD, postpartum or what, or
Meltdown
like
or
depression over it or anything like that. Like, I
right.
wasn't even in that kind of state of mind when the experience happened. Like, I wasn't even like
Yeah.
in my field of thoughts or anything. But so it would have been 5 years later. Okay, so yeah, it was like, my life is going on 5 years later after the miscarriage. And at the same time as me delving into the spirituality and all this stuff, I would I drive a lot in my car. It's funny because I'm here now, but anyway, so I'm in my car. And with nobody in the car, I would feel like the back of my seat, like push into my seat, and it was happening for months and months. But like, pretty much at the beginning when it happened, well, I was like, I was talking to my angels every day, so I'm very much connected to, like, that's kind of how I started down and getting really connected to, like, my inner spiritual self and soul, and
Right.
connected to source, and my team, spirit team, everything, like, but I talk to my angels like a lot. And so I really connected with them early on. That's, I guess, what I was doing there. So anyway, so I was, you know, asking for their help and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, in life and things like
Yeah.
that. So that's, I thought it was just them at first, like one of my angels, and then, but pretty quick, because it was the same thing, and then I realized that the child would be
Yeah,
5,
spirit will nudge
which
you.
would be just the
They'll
age
keep
where the
doing
feet
that.
start to like reach the seat, and like they're kicking, and then you're having to tell a child, get your feet out of the seat or whatever, so I don't know, I just knew, like, oh my gosh, I thought that was cool. And but yeah, so that, I mean, that was going on for a few months, so that, I feel like that was like just a little open for me, like, to say, hey, validation. But like,
It's crazy that they can do that.
yeah, but like little things
They
happen
do
all
all
the
kinds of
time.
weird
Like,
stuff.
I'll just see like signs that say something, very specific, but numbers, like
The
plates, like,
synchronicities.
I mean, constant. And so like, it seems like, I don't know, like even today, like I was seeing, I didn't take pictures, but normally I take a lot of pictures, and I like log all this shit. I have a whole
Right.
channel and out in the Hello Alley Discord for her. But yeah, so it's,
For science and stuff.
yeah, synchronicities basically.
Yeah.
But it's just so fun,
Yeah.
to do,
No, I get
be
it.
connected.
I was like really sad one day, and I like went outside to walk just because I was feeling so like ugh. And then I like look over, and as soon as I glance my head, it's like somebody's like pickup truck, and I'm trying to remember what it said, but it was abbreviated or short, but it was like everything's gonna work out or something like that.
Yeah,
And I was just like, what the hell? I was like that. It made me laugh. I was like,
yeah.
oh my
And
god, that's so
then
weird.
like to have the sense of the gratitude after the that little thing,
Yeah.
and it's just a self-feeding loop, you know what I mean? Like, where you're just like,
Hmm.
it's like, oh, that's awesome, thank you so much, and then you feel awesome, and the next thing it's
To keep you
going.
going.
Yeah, it's fun. I do feel
Cities
like it's
and
all connected, like, and it's it makes me think of the Grant Cameron and what he was saying about how, it's all kind of the same thing. And then I was talking to somebody else the other day, but they were saying that the orbs, like how everything changes. It is weird. Like,
that is a good point. I was like, I never thought about it that way. When I'm like, you were saying
which
something,
makes
I was like,
it
yeah,
does
makes
go more into the mind and the changing, evolving, like,
because
nature.
we're changing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so everything, I don't know. So yeah, I feel like that's even more evidence. I don't know if that could be like a somehow used for evidence, but
yeah. And I don't think it's a coincidence that not only are people coming up to this awareness, but now UFOs are showing up more and more everywhere.
yeah,
It's almost like this, like,
that's the part where I feel like, yeah, people are. I don't know if they're realizing that they're doing it, but what I think is happening is there is somehow the law of attraction is even stronger right now with this whole thing, like, and so somehow
mhm,
law of attraction is
more
playing into
focus.
this, like, because their focus, their intention is to see them, and maybe not all the time, but I'm getting all excited, but yeah, so obviously there's something where the focus and intention is making it happen, but what I was going to say is that somebody was mentioning to me that what if it's like people's consciousness too, the orbs and the lights, like, and what if it's like
Mhm.
Merkabas that people are, I don't know, that was kind of far-fetched kind of idea, but it made a little bit of sense to me, you know what I mean? Like, I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
I think all of it is it's all of it. I think it's all of it. And the thing is just that as we gain awareness and the vibration raises and our frequency raises, we're going to start to see the things that not necessarily were, are just now appearing because we're also changing, but that they were always there. We just couldn't see it because we didn't match that
yeah,
frequency. And now that the frequency is matching, it's slowly starting to go like this. And then all of a sudden, eventually, we're going to be here. And they're like, yeah, I see you now. So I feel like where we're going eventually is going to be like, we're not going to have that disconnection the way we do now, where someone dies and we're like, I can't see them. I don't know where they're at. Or are they still alive? We're going to still be in communication because it's going to be more of a normal thing because when someone passes, they're in a higher frequency. And if we're getting close to that frequency, it's going to be a lot easier to communicate. Because what I've learned, especially in mediumship, is that a medium's job is to kind of raise their frequency, whether they realize they're
Mm-hmm.
doing it or not. And the spirit has to kind of lower theirs because they're trying to make a connection to us, which is we're in a lower density.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be hard to maintain that. So we have to like meet them in the
Yeah.
middle, and then communication
Or
can
you could say
occur.
tune in,
But
they're tuning in.
yeah,
And
exactly.
like Nikola
And
Tesla, if you says if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, then you need to think in terms of energy,
exactly.
frequency, and vibration.
Yeah, he's one of my faves, and those those visionaries and geniuses, in my opinion, like they got it a long time
Yeah, and
ago,
they
and
were
it's crazy
suppressed. I
because
mean,
it's
he
like
was very much suppressed. Like I don't
yeah,
know, pretty much he we he created free energy. So like I mean, it's there, and I think other
yeah,
people have too, and they're
and that's
probably less.
human
So
technology too.
you know,
That's what's crazy. It's like, and he was a normal man. Well, I can't say completely normal because he did so many fascinating things, and he
he very
connected
much
to
connected.
spirit,
He
and
was he
yeah,
was open about the connectedness to all that, and like
yep,
so yeah. I mean, this stuff has been out there for a long time. So I feel like this is the time, though. We're in the time where it's happening. Where
yeah.
um
I feel like
yeah,
they're
the old
gonna
stuff's
those
crumbling.
people are gonna make their mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they made their mark, but I mean, I feel like they're gonna be more prominent because people are gonna look back at Tesla and those other people like him are like, oh shit, like he got it,
Hmm.
like, and we missed this, just like flew over our heads this whole time, and people are realizing it. It's starting to
Well, I mean,
happen,
a
and I
lot of
feel like
like classical like musicians, Mozart. I mean, painters, like they all channeled basically. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, everyone
everyone
channels,
does.
yeah, everyone
Yeah.
channels. Yeah, everyone channels. I like how Bashar says that technically everyone channels, in that when an artist is lost in the painting, they're channeling. Or if you ever do something you really love and you're like, oh my God, 30 minutes, it felt like 30 minutes, but 3 hours went by. And he's like, that's a state of channeling. You're in a channeling state, you're in a flow state.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes into time as well, because he's like, if it felt like 30 minutes to you, he's like, you only aged half an hour while the rest of the world aged 3, because you were in that flow state. And he says, we, or where we're from, we're always in that state. So
Yes.
that's why things are a lot different for us, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, and the whole
Um,
law of attraction on that side is like immediate. You know what I mean? Like so here it's like
yeah,
slowed down, it's like dense and very much lagging.
you got to get in a car to go to
Yeah,
work.
so
You got to
but
walk.
it's the same thing. It's just the stretch or the denseness. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, the change in what
Oh, the
yes,
densities
or
or the
the
frequencies
vibration.
and stuff.
All
Yeah.
yeah, all that's really fascinating. But I don't know. But yeah, I have evolved love. That's what I'm trying to help do is to evolve love.
Yeah, that's why we come here. That's one of the biggest reasons we come here. There's a lot of near death experiencers say that, and also Dolores in her work, she's mentioned that we one of the reasons we come here is to learn
Yeah,
how to
they
love and also how to
oh, I have this written
manipulate
down
energy.
too. So that how we're supposedly made in the image of God, like
Hmm.
an image, imagine, you know, the
Yeah.
word comes from imagine,
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
and so image, imagine, or imagination, you know. So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something to that, I think, as far
Yeah, no. There are all these hints everywhere, and like, you know, I'm not religious, obviously, but I'm spiritual. But at the same time, you find in like all religions, there's this hint of that in there. But humans over time, that's my belief, kind of manipulated and changed things, took things out. Oh, I don't like this. We're gonna cut this out. And like in the beginning of the Bible, it's like in the beginning there was, the word or sound. You can change word to
uh-huh
sound, which
vibration.
or
Yeah.
vibration. Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, holy shit, this makes a lot more sense, and then when you change all the the stories of like the biblical stories of people seeing orbs in the sky and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, that sounds a lot like UFOs now, actually. And it's just like it makes sense because back then they could only use what they had in their terminology. They can't say, "Oh, that looked like a plane."
Right.
They can't say
Uh,
that. You have the in India they have the what are they called? Shamanas, I think, or the flying things in the sky or the flying tortoises. They called them the flying tortoises, and I'm like, that sounds like a UFO. But like, if I didn't have a word for a UFO and I looked at a tortoise, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense,
uh-huh.
you know.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there's all these hints, so yeah, I think you're accurate.
Mm-hmm. Um, so let's see. Yeah, basically, yeah. I think where I was going with that is that, yeah, our imagination is basically creation, like
Great, we're creating all of this.
we are. Yeah, we are definitely spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. That's like my intro for the for the show that
Yeah,
I'm hosting, which we're doing, near death experience or it's anything really spiritual. But yeah, so it's really awesome to be like, absorbed and watching and learning all this stuff. And now like the tables have been flipped and I'm like now like talking to people and interviewing people who like I previously watched, and I'm like sharing on Discord and
yeah,
I'm like, oh
same.
my God, we're interviewing these people. Like what's
Yeah,
happening? So I think it's
yeah,
awesome and like how connected everybody is for the cause.
isn't
Like
that
there is a
weird?
cause.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
love is the cause. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah. It's like a love revolution
yeah.
coming.
It's awesome.
It's like the '70s amplified type,
Uh-huh.
like that energy when they have that movement, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
and it
what is that? Age of Aquarius and the Golden Age and like all that stuff. That there's
yeah. I'm an Aquarius.
yeah, I'm Pisces.
Yeah.
Map of consciousness that David. Let me close that. But the map of consciousness that David R. Hawkins made. But so basically, it starts at the bottom is shame, then guilt, apathy, grief, and so those would be like in the root chakra colors on this chart.
hmm
All sorts of stuff listed on this chart. But yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
as a whole, like the collective consciousness is going up this chart together. And,
Yeah.
individually, I see how I went up this chart, you know what I mean, as well, and the change in me and my
Yeah.
consciousness. But it's basically a map of consciousness and the increased consciousness, all the things related to the different levels as you're going up. But I feel like we're individually doing that and as a whole. But so you should look
Yeah.
into them.
That
Hmm.
makes sense. And it's weird how that works too, because uh one fear I used to have was like, well, because you have this term, and I feel like okay, at least we have a term, and it's perfect for explaining this. But there's also a thing called like spiritual bypassing, where like people are like, oh, that's they won't like take the balance of the negative and the positive. They kind of just try to like cut it off.
Hmm.
And my fear is like if I don't do something a certain way, like I'm gonna be low vibe again or whatever. And somebody asked Bashar something about that, and they're like, he's like, no, he's like, you never really go back, really. He's like, it's kind of like, and he goes like that. He's like, it's like you may like plateau, but then you go up. He's like, you're always
Yeah,
increasing. You're
it's
always
like
increasing. It's
constant
not like you're
going
gonna
up.
go backwards.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's never like a straight line, but like as you go through the challenges, you may plateau, but then it'll go up. It's kind of like a wave.
Right.
And who's your favorite channeler? Is it like Seth Speaks or?
Hmm. It started out with Seth Speaks. I mean, unfortunately, that's from like early 1970s, so there's only a few videos
Mhm.
out, and it's like black and white, almost looking videos of her doing.
Yeah, I've seen some of them. Yeah.
But the book, I mean, is sufficient enough. But it's been, I do watch a lot of videos, so I'll look at more like these days. But I would say like I don't know if I have them all, but like Paul Selig, Bashar's one. Paul Selig, you know him. He channels like the guides.
No, I might have seen that one, but I'm not sure. I would have to see him.
I
Wendy Kennedy is another person I like. I've seen her. She says she channels the Pleiadian Collective,
feel
and
like I've probably seen her
she's
back.
good.
There's so many of them, huh? Like it's funny. Like I I feel like I
Yeah,
probably see
it's
most of them, but I don't. I'm probably far from doing it. I would say
the
like Bashar,
the law of one.
and I
The
do
law of
like
one is another good one.
that stuff. I haven't read the book or any of that kind of stuff,
I haven't
or seen
finished
like
it.
too many, I guess, videos on that either. But from what I did delve into, very much was like in alignment with the Seth speak. Like I felt like it was like the same. So
Yeah, it's like all the same. It's just as different beings, or they're using their own terminology, but they're saying all the same
right.
stuff.
It's really neat
And
too that the channels, they're groups. So like it's not one
yeah,
entity or one being that somebody's
yeah,
channeling. It's a group that like give themselves a name, like
a
our human
collective,
self to, I guess, understand.
so that we
Yeah,
understand.
probably more or less for just for that. But I mean, maybe I don't know exactly. But yeah, because it all comes from the one. But you can see how it kind of branches off from one. Like, and then there's like this, like I don't know, and then it comes down into here, which we also make little groups, I guess, to some extent. But but I don't know. It's interesting how people come together. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, no, it makes sense. And I mean, to touch on that, there's actually, I hear a lot of NDEers say, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where they said if everyone had an NDE, there would be peace on Earth. And it makes sense though, because it makes like when you realize when you hurt someone else, you're literally hurting yourself,
Right.
and you'll get to feel how you made them feel. That's that makes a lot of sense. So it makes a lot of sense with those beings talking in that way, because in that higher state, they're able to experience all of that too. So that's why they're in that state of consciousness. And I do believe that there are negative beings and stuff. I have, unfortunately, in
Well, this is where I was
in
like, my thing is like it's the
yeah,
mind. So I mean, we are creating that too. You know what I mean? So those who
yeah,
are focused more on all that or fear these lower vibrational things, like on the consciousness chart, are spawn basically these experiences. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like I think that's what's
hmm,
happening there. And yeah, it's all contrast of the same. I mean, it's all one, but we're like in this bubble of experience here. I don't know, and it's all in here, and we're connecting these core energy cords to either like worry and fear and shame about however we feel about ourselves or
right,
whatever else in our experience or life or whatever. So yeah, it just goes back to like we are whatever we're focused in our attentions and thoughts and feelings are on the most is what we're gonna mirror or
right.
experience.
There are people who, I think it's easier for like beings like that to latch on to people with like negative beliefs or fear, because it's just like that's where they're resonating. And like my
Yeah,
medium teacher, she clears houses, and she says when you clear a house,
or
if
even the
there's like something
belief
there,
the belief
she's
that it
like,
can happen. I feel like
yeah,
if you believe that that's possible, then it is. If you
yeah,
believe that it's not,
exactly. The
it's
universe never
not.
says no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of go about it.
And
I'm like, I'm a strong light, and my field is good, and I'll also like ask and do all the stuff, for whatever, you know what I mean. But I think all in general,
mhm,
like I feel like nothing can do anything to me in a negative. And I'm not
yeah,
also consciously not focusing on that kind of stuff because I'm consciously aware that
yeah, it's like oil and water. So it's like when you're at a certain energy level, I think that they can't really get to you. So it's kind of just like that divide. And I think the universe has this system built in place for that reason too. So it's just like, um, again, like my teacher, she says when she tries to clear a house or whatever, she has to, this is the challenging part, not have fear, because fear is that lower vibrational energy and they can feed off of that, and then it perpetuates after that, and then they can utilize that energy, or that energy can do weird shit that'll like freak you out. But she says you have to have like love and understanding for those beings as well. And even in an NDE, there was a woman who was taken down to like a lower realm, as we would call it, or some people might say hell or something, and she saw all these people suffering and moaning, and it was creepy looking and everything. And she was speaking with God or source, and she asked why is that even a thing, like what put them there? And source replied, free will, that they put themselves there, nobody put them there. And in every negative, because I'm sure you heard of negative NDEs as well, in every negative NDE that I've come across where it lasted long enough, the moment the person like asks, uses their free will to ask for
Mm-hmm.
help, guides or spirit or source will come through and take them out of there. Like nobody's making you suffer, you know, and if you need help, you can ask. And free will is like very, very, even to the ETs and abduction cases are like very, very respected, like the free will aspect.
Yeah.
And
And
some, yeah,
so,
someone might
you
say,
might
well,
say like
okay,
spirits or hauntings or what all that are people
yeah,
who, were so attached to things in this earth life and so
yeah,
disconnected from their true nature of a spiritual being, like
hmm,
that. That's how they kind of get stuck. So yeah, people have to be like helped
yeah,
to the light and things like that. And
yeah.
it's yeah, it's wild that part,
It happens. It happens. And in Dolores's work, there was one particular case where she was talking to a person higher self. Sometimes that happens too, where they'll talk to the you that's outside of the body that's more aware of what's going on. And she was saying that part of her job when she's like her body's resting or asleep is to help beings like that. And she says it's like those beings kind of they've lost the ability to see the light in themselves, and they help kind of nudge them in the right direction. They don't force them out of the experience. She says it's kind of like they put paper mache around their own light and they don't see it. And she's like, well, how long does it take to get a being out of that state? And she said, as long as it takes. That, we're eternal, so there's no rush, and it takes as long as it takes for them to see their own light. But those beings are no less source or light than we
Right.
are. It's not that they're demons and that's their lot in life and they're always going to be demons. They have just as much potential to move forward as we
Right.
do.
Yeah, and from my understanding, as far as people go into the astral realm and OB out of body experiences and all that, which I'm not
Hmm.
experienced with all that, but yeah, if you come across these lower vibe entities, which I guess does happen, and I'm still trying to fully
Yeah.
understand dimensions and all these different things, but from I would assume from what I gather, there's the astral realm, which is where these other lower vibrations can be, and then there's higher dimensions. So the higher you go,
Yeah.
you're getting closer to heaven or whatever, and which
Yeah.
is where all the love and light
Yeah.
is, and
Exactly.
so everything else is like
Yeah.
so. Yeah, but regardless, if you come across, like you said, sin love, your teacher said that, which is also what I've heard, and like that's all you have to do. And of course, it could go the other way, I guess, if you feed into the fear in the astral or whatever. But I'm not
Right.
saying from experience because I haven't, you know, practiced or which
Yeah.
apparently people can focus and spend a lot of time on, like waking up in the 3 a.m. in the morning purposely to, attempt to have like OBs. I don't know if you've ever done that, but yeah, that I have a at one
I've,
point in all this, I did make those attempts. I think I said 222
yeah.
just because I was all about the numbers, annual numbers, and everything. So I tried that, and then dream journaling, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I started
Oh, I
doing
was
that
gonna
too,
say
and I've
this
mentioned
about
before.
the and I think this was Seth speaks, Seth but
Hmm.
that we literally like our dreams we go out of our bodies every night whether we are aware or conscious or not, we are doing this, we do it out of our bodies. It's we can have like dreams, and anyway we're doing a lot of work in our spirit bodies
When
while
we're
we're sleeping,
sleeping.
and then
Yeah,
being here because it's not real. It's tiring, and that is why we actually our bodies need sleep, because we're
that's my
faking
thought
it.
on
We're
it
like
too.
faking it all, and doing this life when it's not even real. And like, so it's like, it's a lot of work for like us.
To
Yeah.
be here.
And then
Yeah,
another aspect or another thing that they said is like
it's
literally
exhausting.
every, like, I don't know, millisecond or whatever, but our consciousness or whatever is blinking in and out of this experience like
Yeah,
constantly, like all
yeah,
day, and we don't even realize it. But like, yeah, so we're never like disconnected, and it's really about us coming into the awareness of all this going on, like otherwise we're like
yeah.
on
I
autopilot. We're in these like automatic bodies, that have a lot of automatic. stuff
Yeah.
going on, you know. But I don't know. We're like driving the vehicle, so you can either be like a passenger in this vehicle, or you
Right.
can be like the driver, you know.
Yep. That makes sense. That's a good
And you
analogy.
can drive it to whatever destination you want, you know, like, or you can.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I even had a dream once that felt like a lifetime. It was crazy. I was just like, it felt like I went through an entire lifetime. And
That's
how do you
cool.
bring like to say that is like weird because it's like, no, I was only asleep for like X amount of hours. You know what I mean? So it's just like how do you even? I don't know. But again, over there, time is not like people on DMT say the same thing. It's just like it. Like one of the guests that I had, Chase, and he was talking about that. We were talking even off camera about this, about how someone can do DMT or NDE or whatever, and time it could be like 10 years over there, and then when you come back, you're like, whoa, that felt like 10 years. That's so strange. When we kind of like sink back into this reality, it just doesn't.
Yeah, it's like five.
It doesn't
Yeah,
make
the
any
time
sense.
is totally different, and yeah, it's so funny that, but I keep having like these thought processes, but like, yeah, I'm way into the conversation, so I get excited and then I lose track. But what I was gonna say that
I do the same thing. So
if I thought it was synchronistic that you are into Dolores Cannon, because I am very much want to learn the whole QHHT. I almost like signed up for the program or whatever.
oh, did you get the first piece that I shared?
What do you mean?
I have a friend who actually has like the first part of the course of her documents on how to
Oh,
do
really?
this stuff.
You should.
Eh, yeah, I could reshare it. I could reshare it so that you don't have to pay
Yeah.
for it. Not that we don't want to support her work or anything, but synchronicity, abundance comes in
Yeah,
all
and I thought it was
forms.
cool too. I also started a class for Reiki, and you said that you said you're certified, right? Or working
Yeah,
on it.
I'm like Reiki
Yeah.
2.
So that's
Yeah, Reiki 2. I have
cool.
certificates. I just didn't hang them up or anything like
Uh-huh.
that. I have done them on people, and I've weirded out people too because they like I would do it, and uh, I've had a session with someone who's kind of like skeptical about the whole thing, and I was like, it's fine. And then you put like a sleep mask on her so she could relax because she couldn't chill. And I was like, just put the sleep mask on. I put some music on, and then I started like moving my hands, and she's like, whoa, this is freaking me out. I was like, what? She's like, I feel you. Like that's weird. She's like, you're over my stomach right now. I was like, yeah. And she's like, how do I? And she's like, that is so weird. What is that? And then you know, uh, I tell people too in my sessions that sometimes you will get an inkling, sometimes of a memory might pop up or whatever. And I said, that's fine. Just talk, if you feel comfortable talking about it, talk about it because it's kind of like a release. And when I hovered over like her leg, she had like a kind of a memory pop up of something that happened to her. And then she started to talk about it. And then she started to talk more. And then that's that's how I do it. I mean,
That's
like I don't know. I also do intuitive stuff too. So it's
yeah.
just sometimes I'll say something to the person while I'm doing Reiki. I don't know. It's just kind of combined. Same thing happens when I'm reading tarot cards. Sometimes I'll read cards and I know what to say. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like a download comes down and I know exactly how to say that person I was talking about in the Reiki session. Um, when I was reading her cards, all of a sudden, it's amazing when this happens. It doesn't happen all the time. I had like a download and then I was like, wait a minute. I was like, like about a week ago, you did you ask for help? Like maybe to yourself or audibly out loud. Like I feel like you're in a room literally asking for help. Like you're asking something, anything for help. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know how I would know that. It just
That's
came to me. It's
awesome.
just weird.
Yeah, you should keep honing in
But
on.
you should do it too. Like keep doing because it's gonna open you up,
Yeah.
like and when it happens, it'll like kind of click, and then you just kind of go with the flow. And the hard part is not questioning it because you just second guess yourself. I do that all the time.
Right.
So
Right. And eventually everybody will be doing this. Hopefully.
yeah, I think that it's gonna revolutionize the. I don't want to say industry. That's the wrong word. It's gonna revolutionize healing altogether. Like imagine hospice where we have frequency stuff, and they understand energy differently. They have crystals. They have people doing Reiki there too. They have all those different modalities. Like they're when science and spirituality meet, we're going to propel so much more forward than we've ever
I feel
gone
like it's
because
already happened. I
you
mean,
know
there are.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
happening now. And it's just, for so long we've been in this materialist, we got to cut you open, we got to remove this and here now we have people like healing themselves when they shouldn't have been healed,
Mhm.
from cancer. They had tumors all over their body and then all of a sudden the tumors vanished and the doctors have no idea how it was possible. So it's just one of those
Yeah,
things.
I mean, one of the,
And
I guess, pretty much way to prove that our mind, does is the placebo effect. I mean, isn't that kind of a proof thing already?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, and Chase, one of the previous guests, I didn't even know this, but he says they run tests against the placebo, and now he was saying that they stopped doing it because they're not going to make money because they know that we have that capacity to actually do
hmm
that. It's amazing.
right.
Like when old soul, right? Like when people say old soul, souls don't have an age, but I think it's just a way to explain experience.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I think that's a better way to.
Jeanette
And
Byron just did a
Dolores's
little
work.
short on this, and it's funny. Um, but yeah, we are all the same. But yeah, it is experience. I would pretty much that makes you older, I guess,
Yeah,
an older soul.
we did a practice session where
The
she
Earth
told me to come
experience,
to
I guess
practice,
that's
and
what she was saying. It's the Earth
yeah,
experience, basically. That
and
it makes you old
yeah,
soul or
and
new
we
soul.
did
How much Earth experience you have?
exactly, yeah, and we did a, a lesson, a class. She had a class, and her classes were very cheap, and a lot of people were there. I was like one of the only males there, and her son was there actually. But every other time it was usually female. It's funny because females are usually the ones that are more in tune and more connected. And everyone did. We had to sit in a chair, and everyone had to like read people's energy. They had to practice. What do you see? What do you feel? Blah blah. But when it got to me, that's when it got weird because everybody started saying weird stuff. And then she just blurted out something she only said to me in private. She's like, "Oh yeah, Christian's not from here." She's like, "Christian's not from me. Their energy's different." She's like, her guides, like, she's like, "I see his like deceased, like his grandmother, his grandfather, blah blah blah." But like when it's his guides and stuff, they're not from here either. So they're like very like massive, and their energy. She's like, I can't even. She's like, I don't even know how to distinguish them from each other. It's weird.
Mm,
And I was like, what the hell? I record. Nobody knew I was recording. I recorded the whole session. But I think that all of us, like who doing this, you, Ali, everybody, they are all like higher dimensional beings, probably coming back to help. That Dolores talks about that. She calls
waves,
them the
yeah.
waves. Yeah, the waves of people
Uh-huh.
coming here. Uh,
Yeah, I can feel that because it's just there is some sort of like force that's, I don't know, it's magical almost how like we end up like
yeah,
together and like the mission that we all feel like it's like
yeah,
there's this drive, this force behind everything that's really yeah, awesome.
yeah. And they're like trusted.
Yeah. I mean what I
It's
think
weird.
I, I say I think, but and what I'm trying to do for myself anyway, I say is try to like embody my higher self. And so that's I think enlightenment or consciousness increasing or just awakening, spiritual growth, all that, whatever you want to call it, is just more or less you're embodying your higher self, which
Yeah,
that soul or spirit, which I don't fully understand all the the terms and technicalities, which Jeanette Byro also talk. I love Jeanette Byro, but anyway, she also talks about all that stuff on a lot of her stuff. But yeah, it's all coming from source, just,
yeah,
yeah, branches out. I don't know. Maybe that's the,
yeah. Even George said something weird to me too. Yeah, about I was just like, how do you? I was like, what made you say that? He's like, I don't know, dude. I just was ever since I got into this. It was like, but yeah, it's getting weird and in a
it
good way.
is.
But I mean, like, is just the synchronicities just like left and right, and you're like, what the
Yeah.
hell? You can't help but smile. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean?
Yeah, I feel like we're doing it, you know. We're creating, we're
Yeah,
on the path, and I think that's our emotions and all the different, you know, low or high vibes, like that's are your compass. So like if you're not feeling happy or you're not, you know what I mean, that's your sign, your
yeah,
signal that hey, you're not on like the path that you're supposed to be on. So switch it up, do whatever you got to do because that's your emotions, you know,
yeah,
are energy in motion. Like emo, I don't know if you ever saw any of that kind of stuff as far as like, but it goes into like, you know, illnesses and all start with spiritually. So it's emotionally, you know, it's,
yeah.
yeah, we do have all these bodies. We have the physical body,
There's,
the emotional body, the, you know, mental body, the, I think
yep.
it might be like five. I don't even know the number, but there's multiple bodies.
Me either.
Yeah.
I don't know all of them either. Yeah, there's a book that I got and I lost it, but I was like halfway through it. And I got to get it again. It's called All Things Can Be Healed. And it was about a guy who was diagnosed with throat cancer, and everyone told him he was going to die. They could do nothing for him, and he's like, it's usually in life when you get to that point, you're either going to give up or you're going to actually do something about it. And he decided to do something about it. And most times when someone's going to do something about it, they're going to get a second opinion, and then they also get pushed to look into alternative medicine and stuff like that. And that's what happened to him. And he started learning about energy, and he learned about the chakras and the throat chakra, and this is something that happens over time. Is not, again, we're in that reality where things is like
Takes
stretched out.
time.
um and his challenge that he had trouble with was that he didn't really express how he felt when he should have. And he kept all of that internalized for a long time. He didn't speak about it. And eventually that manifested into an illness. And for people listening, there was also a person who, Anita
Yes.
Morjani, I think is
Hmm.
the one. And she was told after her cancer, she had lymphoma, and she was told, hey, you're going to have to, you're going to go back. It's not your time. And she's like, how am I going to go back to my body? It's destroyed. She had tumors everywhere. And the being had told her all illnesses start off energetically first. He says, we're going to fix your energy and the illness is going to go away. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And now she's just like it never
Right.
happened.
It's
It's
a
it's
miracle.
it's insane. But that's, yeah. And it just, energy is real. Although I also think
It's belief.
that there are certain
Yeah.
choices, pre-birth planning stuff, that someone gets sick and dies for a certain reason.
Yeah.
Everything is, yeah, happens for a reason, but at the same time, we do have free will. It's not like we don't
Yeah.
have a
And I mean
choice.
if you
Yeah.
have a good understand, a pretty good grasp on the fact that yes, this is like literally a this lifetime that we're experiencing is a blink of an eye in like the real eternal time or whatever time or not
Yeah.
time or whatever you might want to call it. But yeah, and so it's not to like minimize anybody's experience on earth. Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
understanding of all that really helps with all the negative and the drama. It's like why even
Yeah.
like bother, like it's just yeah. So to
Yeah.
go like into
Yeah, I'm
I
with you
say
there.
that, I
And
mean,
that's
I'm
gotten
sure
me
if I
into
had
trouble.
something in my face, you know, somebody that I love
Yeah.
dearly, you know, it's a whole nother thing. And but I would understand
Yeah.
in that case, I would understand this is something that I guess I planned. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would think I would still like
Yeah.
100%, like I wouldn't fall down the, so it's an awareness, I feel like, that you come to, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't know. But
Yeah. There's a Robert Shorts. I brought
I
it up
really like
earlier,
him.
and
Yes.
yeah, he's
Mhm.
awesome. And with the pre-birth planning
Mhm.
stuff, and he is asking all the questions that we would ask, like, why though? Like, why would we, why would this happen? Or what about, a child dying, or like people suffering in Africa? Those kinds of choices, like, why would we do that? And there's always a reason, always a choice. We may not understand it from this perspective here on earth, but there is a reason that soul chose to do certain things. And when souls choose to do a life that's challenging, even like people with mental disabilities or physical disabilities, there's a reason for that. And it also gives the people who are observing those others an opportunity to do something. So if someone's on need on the street or something like that, that's an opportunity to be more loving. That gives you the opportunity to show compassion, to learn in your
Like
development
service
as
to
a soul.
others and all
And
that.
exactly. And it's how you learn. And in the state of the spirit realm, because some people will say, well, if it's so perfect over there, why do we even come here to begin with? It's, if everything's perfect, you can't know the difference. Like, how do you know the difference of real
Yeah,
love if you don't know that
contrast.
it's opposite? It's
Yeah,
contrast. Yeah. So it's just, that's just how we learn. And not this, I've gotten into trouble talking about this stuff, not saying anything negative, but sometimes maybe it's an Aquarius thing.
Mhm.
I don't know. But like, there are times where I'll say something a certain way and I don't mean it in a cold way, but it comes across as cold or like machine, like disconnected, and I don't mean it that way. I'm just explaining the mechanics of like this. And I'm like, and I have to apologize later because it's not what I mean. I don't want to make anyone sad or cry or feel bad,
Yeah.
you know? But everyone's at their own level of
Yes.
awareness. That's what I always say. And it makes me feel better when someone's being a jerk or something. And I'm just like, I shouldn't judge him because I have no idea what his life is going, like what's going on in
Mhm.
that person's life. I have no idea. And a lot of people just react
Yeah.
or, project, and they don't really mean it either deep down,
Yeah. And
but
yeah,
hurt people, like you said,
you
hurt
start to
people.
understand. So yeah, your awareness of like why
Yeah.
they you start to think instead of like reacting automatically to these people who are rude or doing this or that, like you actually might take a minute and then I I personally try to do something that might help them to change without even like saying, I mean, you all you have to do is smile or not
Yeah.
give some kind of defensive or weird energy. I mean, we are
Or a
energy,
hug.
and like we don't have to say anything. We actually give
Yeah.
off energy. So I mean, you can easily just like not react to something like that and exude a good energy towards them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it could like change them. Who knows? But maybe it did something better for them.
Yeah.
And we are constantly creating and putting out like ripples, is the way I see it. And then
Yeah.
we could do something a little nice or a little, but it could turn the next 10 people down the line. It could turn to something huge, awesome, great that they do that makes a huge difference and it could be the opposite if you like do something not so nice, a little bit not,
Yeah.
selfish or whatever it might be, and then or just a hurtful word or whatever you might say to somebody and then 10 people down, it could be some horrible, horrible thing that happens. I mean, to
Yeah.
think about that and have that
Yeah.
awareness really will might make people think like,
That's all it takes is just one little thing, and all of our choices are like stones being thrown into a pond, and it just ripples
yeah,
out, and it affects
it does.
everything. And Andy Ears talk about that too, about how throwing away one piece of wrapper out on the street and not, giving a shit about it, and then him being able to go back into the life review and seeing where that paper wound up and how it affected
Yeah.
everything else, and he was just like, "Holy shit!" And um, energy between people is a real thing too. And Bashar has mentioned that, or actually not Bashar, they, like, I've actually gotten out of certain situations too, like little things that would have been arguments just because of my energy. It was weird. I actually got into, it was kind of like an ex, and it's not like we left badly, but at the same time, whenever we separated, at first it was okay, but then she started showing a lot of like animosity, and it was like this weird, because I just accepted it and I was like, okay, I'm gonna move on now. It's fine. I understand. And that made me feel okay. And then my energy just felt like good. And it was almost like she was annoyed by the fact that I was okay. So she wanted to be combative and she was arguing. And I wasn't combative. And I was just like, it's okay. Thank you for doing this for me. Thank you for, and it was like she didn't even know where to put the anger. She was like, how do I even, I can't, it was like, an analogy would be like a bear is trying to attack you and you just lie down, and then the bear's like, what the fuck, like, and it that's an energy thing, and it's also the same when you walk into a room and you're like, I don't like this vibe, like it just feels weird off between people. I can feel that. But
or even like for sure if
Yeah,
it's
it's a real
like
thing.
directed at you or, specifically, like that's like
Yeah,
people, yeah, energy is real. Like we 100% are energy, and we um
yep,
and apparently it's going to be more the telepathic, all that kind of aspect going to increase,
yep.
so I guess
Mm-hmm.
we're on the cusp of possibly like more of that
Right.
here happening. So
Bashar calls it telepathy, and I kind of agree. Also because of the mediumship stuff. Like whenever I've done it, whenever they're communicating, it's every medium is different too. Because it's just like trying to find a way to say it. It's I feel what they mean because it's not black and white like you and me talking right now. It's like it's almost like a language. You have to interpret it sort of. Sometimes they say things that don't make sense, and I see them in my mind, and I
yeah, it's
feel what they're
the
saying.
emotions, the feelings, like all the different kind of things that
Yeah,
are,
I just know what they
yeah,
mean, which is
uh-huh.
strange. And but they'll also use imagery with me to convey something at the same time. So it's like imagery and feeling, and it's like all intertwined into like one. And my teacher would stress, she's like, if it doesn't make sense, that's okay. Bring it up to the person that it's for because it's not for you. And I'm like, okay.
I've heard that too.
And same when I would do that, and then all of a sudden people were like, how do you know that? And it's just like and even one time I tell people there was a death that happened. They told me about a death that was going to happen, and then I forgot about it. 2 weeks later
Hmm.
death happened, and I was like, that wasn't me. I was like, that's what he said, you know what I mean? But at the same, it gives you more confidence in that. You
Yeah, you sound like
mentioned you read
um
tarot.
I mean, no, I just dabble in it. So yeah, like I'm learning everything.
No, it's okay. I'm not a
Uh-huh.
pro or anything. I'm still like I can't, as much as I talk about it, I can't, not yet, turn it on and
Mhm.
off. Like to really get that communication, I had to
Yeah,
like
I will
meditate.
say
And then other
I do
times
go with my
it was just
intuition
random.
like a lot, my gut. Like I think I've always
Yeah.
kind of followed that, but definitely more with my awareness increasing, spirituality and all that. Like yeah, like I even more so do that. But yeah, I think that everything is within, and we need to follow that. Like that's another part of the whole mind and this whole like reality and stuff. It is like apparently everything's
Right.
within. Like we are each our own, universe and within us, and it's
Yep.
just wild to think of it. But yeah, like I don't know, are we going out or are we going in when we're having those experiences? What is it? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but from
I
I think
I think it's I think we're going in. Yeah. It's weird. It's like there really is no out
so what does that mean?
there.
That
It's
means that
just
we are,
yeah,
we are it. Yeah.
everything. It's weird, but it makes
Yeah.
sense, and it leads to when you look into this stuff. Like for people just getting into this, it leads to everywhere else. You're gonna start following this trail of breadcrumbs, and you're gonna start finding the ET stuff, and then it's just that's what I that was the strangest, coolest thing about uh the beginning of my journey for me was just NDEs and then hypnotherapy, and I'm like, wait a minute, they're saying the same things all these thousands of people in NDEs are saying. I
Yeah.
was like, wait a minute. And then the Chandlers are talking and they're saying all the
The
same things
experiences
that
with
both uh,
PT as
I was
well,
like,
and
what's
there's
yeah, I was like,
and as far as all that, it is all tied together, I think. And I feel like
yeah,
maybe there are some negative ET, and I can see it very possible that they are
right.
part of like what's you know part of the whole negative aspect of this
Yeah,
whole experience and uh, part of all that. But you know, I'm obviously not focusing on that. But I guess where I'm going with that is that like we would have already been like done with. You know what I mean? Yeah,
annihilated,
like
wiped
I mean
out.
everything is
Yeah,
totally fine, and I don't feel like any kind of like
yeah,
alarm feeling or like worry that people are talking about ETs at this point, like and UFOs or UAPs
yeah,
or whatever they want to call or put titles and everything. But yeah, I mean it's just
yeah.
yeah, I don't think there's anything really too much to worry about with all that, and I do see how it might be used to create more of the fear, tactics and mongering and war machine and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like that is
Right.
all sooner or later gonna, like, people.
Yeah. At least for
Yeah,
us,
but I mean, at least,
because I
yeah,
also
and
believe
and
in.
but and I guess
Oh,
what I
sorry.
was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say is, at least, people might not see it this way, but I think me and you can probably see it, how, it's just all part of the play. It's all part. It's all, it's
Yeah.
all. I don't know. So I
Right.
don't know. I don't know how that is kind of disconnected,
No.
like you were
Not.
saying, but it is. I think there is a detachment that goes along with spirituality. A detachment from, like, this Earth 3D, like, dense. You can
Right.
detach from those emotions. Is probably what it is. You know what I mean? We're detaching.
Yeah.
We're being more high vibrational, higher frequency, and
Yeah.
so we are actually detached from those lower, like, whatever. I'm thinking as I'm saying this. I have my moments
Like
where
beings or like.
I lose it or I
Yeah.
get frustrated, and so I have my very human days,
Same.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Me
But
too.
I'm not gonna, like,
Yeah.
beat myself up for 2 days after, like, I do something that I get mad at myself, and then I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Like, and I'm more
Yeah.
quick to, like, be like, all right,
Yeah. Because it has its
yeah,
momentum too. Like if you keep that energy, like it
yeah,
comes back. I feel like it comes back faster because you're so aware now
mhm.
that it's just,
Yeah,
I
so
don't know.
it's
It's just
easier
one
to,
of
like,
those
let things
things.
go and then forgive, the forgiveness, the love, understanding all of it. It just all, like,
Hmm.
increases, for yourself and others and everything
Yeah.
else. So,
Yeah. And I also believe and some of the channelers talk about this. I believe in parallel realities, and I think that everything exists. We can't, as something that exists, we can't conceive of anything that doesn't exist because we're a part of creation. And, like when Bashar asked somebody to just imagine non existence because they kept asking him about it, he's like, go ahead, imagine non existence. And he's like, I can't. He's like, exactly. He's like, because if you could describe it, it's something that exists, right? So it's just like non-existence is already full of itself. But he says, as we, raise, and he's not the only person saying this, as we raise an awareness, wherever we shift our focus to, we're going to start getting to the point where we put ourselves into those realities. So he's like, what do you prefer? And other, what was it? The law of one also talks about that too, that they use a term that sounds scary, but it's not. They call it like the harvest. It sounds terrible. I was like, oh my God. Anything else, guys? But same thing, that it could get to the point where the vibration is enough of a shift for you as an individual where you can be placed in a reality of your
timeline,
own,
like, that's
choosing.
fine.
Yeah, timeline
Hmm.
jumping. Yeah. And that's what I think the Mandela effects are, because it's just so weird that you have these groups remembering
Yeah, there's
certain
definitely, like,
things.
a whole
And I'm like,
weaving, like,
that's,
aspect happening with, like, time, like,
yeah,
yeah, very
yeah.
weird.
And I had questions about whether, what does that look like when someone jumps into another reality? Does Bob just disappear?
It's
Like,
almost like
and
each
somebody actually
choice,
asked
each
Bashar,
choice we make, we
yeah,
could jump timelines, basically.
yeah, yeah. And somebody asked Bashar that question, and I was like, oh yes, what is he going to say to this one? Like, what would we visibly perceive? And they had mentioned, he had said that whatever it takes for your mind to believe that there was some kind of a shift or change that occurred. So, like, you may visibly perceive that person die, and they may be like in another reality, but from your perspective, they physically died. And what was I found interesting, I was reading Dolores Cannon, and there was she was speaking to someone's higher self in a regression, and that same question got brought up. She was like, what happens when someone makes a shift, though, if there are other realities? It's not as dramatic as a portal opening up, although they said it is possible if you actually truly believe that could happen. But they were given an example, and one of the examples was like, oh, look at Leslie or look at Christian. They said this whole world was going to change and all this stuff, and ETs were real, and then they ended up dying, and none of that ever happened. So from their perspective, it looked like we died. So that I found interesting because it was very in line of what. But to us, it may seem like nothing happened. I think it would be as painless as a Mandela effect, where you wake up one day and all of a sudden the Statue of Liberty is red, and you're like, no, I swear to God, the Statue of Liberty was green. Like, there's no way. But we're starting to visibly perceive these little changes. So that's my theory. Like, it might be as painless or as seamless as a Mandela effect, and all of a sudden, oh, well, you wake up and you're like, oh,
Yeah, I
the
don't
world's
think we're
better,
gonna see anything
you know. But
extreme. It's gonna be like
like, yeah, I don't think it's going to be like a portal or
it's gonna be
something, you
like,
know,
yeah, a seamless kind of.
a gradual. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, because I mean,
you
it's
know,
literally like we're tuning in to different vibrational
yeah,
fields.
frequencies and stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot
And
to. I mean, it's neat to talk to somebody else who can like grasp these ideas. I don't know.
yeah,
I think you have to go down the path to be able to have an understanding. Like I don't.
yeah,
I'm
some
sure we
people,
probably
this will
sound
not make
so. This
sense, and then
might.
they'll,
We're probably
yeah.
sounding crazy. But
Yeah, no, I get it.
it's really not. It's more real than, and I feel it and resonate that it. I mean, I'm like, I'm sold. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
so I don't know.
yeah, yeah. They even have what's interesting, something I looked into a little bit. It's called Curlian photography.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard
Yeah.
of that? Yeah. And for people that don't know, uh I think it was a husband and a wife. I'll just call them the Curlians because that's their name. But they discovered a way to take images of objects and even people, um, and they could see the energy field around these objects. And what was amazing is that they could cut a leaf in half, and when they took a picture of it, the energy of the full leaf was still there, and its actual energy with waves and like electricity. You can actually see it. And then they were like, well, what happens when we take a picture of a person? What happens when we take a picture of a person and we tell them to focus on this other person with love? What happens? And you could actually visibly perceive the energy difference. It actually looked different when someone uh, was asked to imagine hateful things about another person, or separation, or I hate you, or whatever. There was actual like a visible energy wall between the two like energies of people. And when they were asked to imagine love or even like sexual stuff, you could see like the energy intertwining, which was really fascinating, which I think is really cool. So I think what would happen if you told someone to take Curly in photography, who lost an arm, like would there still be a light arm there, kind
Yeah.
of like the leaf? I don't know. I don't think they've done that, but I'm
It
curious.
made me think about the
um
rice experiment, or water,
yeah, I
like
was
the
going to bring that
upgrading
up
of the
too.
water, which I talked about
Hmm.
on another alley.
I want to do that. I actually want to do that.
Yeah, it's real.
We should all do it as a little experiment and then upload pictures to Discord and be like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
2 months in,
I
this
mean,
is what
if
happened.
you think
I
about
mean, I
that
know
too,
it's
it's like
real, but
that's goes back to the whole like experience. I mean, even just regular life experience, daily life, or what they're
yeah,
bringing into their experience, but also with the ET and the UFO
yeah,
experiencers, like people, like I feel like pretty soon everybody's gonna really understand that we are creating our reality. You know what I mean?
yeah,
This is what's happening,
yeah,
and yeah.
yeah. And I think there's people want to get into science and they want things to be measured. Some of them, not everyone, because the truth is subjective to the
Hmm.
individual. Like what I consider true and what you consider true and how we came to that conclusion is very,
And
very
it's
different
because of our each
sometimes.
individual perspective.
And
So like like your truth is
yeah,
your truth. You know what I mean? And my truth is my
yeah,
truth.
yeah, exactly.
And so yeah, everybody's like talking
Yeah,
about truth, and it's just funny because like a lot of, yeah, like what you just said. It's
yeah. And people like there are certain science that we have and certain tools that we can use to measure some of this, which is starting to happen. And scientists are starting to be blown away about finding out about some of the stuff we're talking about already. But I find it fascinating that channelers and people and Tesla and all these people have been saying this for years before it became mainstream. They're like, yeah, this is what's happening.
yeah.
And they're like, yeah, bullshit. And then now they're like, oh
I
shit,
mean, probably
it's
even a lot more
true.
than we're aware of,
You know?
because I mean, a lot of stuff's been just
Yeah.
buried and purposely. I feel like.
Yeah,
So we're
I think that, and even if you go back into history, even long ago, I think that they had answers. I think that we were more advanced than they say that we were,
I
and
personally was a big
they
Ancient
have.
Aliens fan. So
Yep. Hmm. Have you seen Ancient
what's that?
Apocalypse? Ancient Apocalypse on
Is that a new
Netflix?
thing? Because I for the past few years, kind of like I don't
Sort of new.
if it's anything.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot. It's Oh, I love him. He gets it. In his show, he doesn't talk about this stuff, but in podcasts on Joe Rogan, he gets it. I know that he does. He
What is it
gets this
on?
stuff. His name is Graham. It's on Netflix.
I have
It's called
Netflix.
Ancient
I'll look
Apocalypse.
into it, I
His name
guess.
is his name is Graham Hancock, and it's crazy how they try to shut him down. It's just he's just coming up with really really good statements about how we were, and he's interviewing the people too, like how we were more advanced than they say that we were. And they're finding these temples that were cut out of like I forgot what this obsidian like type stone that you can only get from volcanic rock, but it's
Yeah,
like you can't cut that with a chisel and a hammer, man. Like
yeah.
you can't do that. So
Same
this is like,
thing
how
with
did they
it.
do it? And they're cut
That
with
was
such
discussed
precision.
on Ancient Aliens back in too.
Yeah.
Which I is there new ones out these days? That's how disconnected I am.
I'm 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 not
I
even
binge
sure.
watched
Like
all of
I
them
there's
though
so many
when they
things on my
first came
list.
out.
Yeah, I watch Unified stuff and Gaia stuff, and there's so much coming out now. It's getting hard to keep up with like my life, work, and
Uh
then
huh.
editing and trying to
I
do all
feel
of
like
that stuff. So, but I
you're
want to
probably
watch all of
the
it.
same, but like I don't know. I watch like things like on fast speed. Like I'm like I watch things fast, and I'm just
Yeah,
I feel like I'm the more I take in information, the more I'm like a machine. I just keep like I keep like
yeah. It's
it
like a
is, and
hunger.
it just
It's
won't
weird.
stop. And so like I'm just as much as I can. I'm just trying to like I keep trying to take in information and stories and different things that are happening. Like I can't stop. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it was for me. Like after that weird experience I had that drew me to NDEs, like overnight. This was an overnight thing that happened. That's what was so strange about it. Just a dream that and knowing that I had to look up near death experiences, which is such a random thought, right?
That
And
is.
then it was just like, oh my God, oh my God. And it was like all the questions you ever wondered, these people were giving the answers to, and it just resonated. And you have all these strangers, even NDEs in foreign countries where they're being translated and they're saying the
Yeah.
same stuff. And I was just like blown away. And a lot of people who end up having those, not everyone, but a lot of people who have those experiences end up letting go of their religion
Yeah.
or even saying like my religion lied to
Yeah.
me, and it's just
Yeah.
that's a big one. And I think that, for people who are religious and watching, I'm like, there are truths in religion, and I feel that
They
more and
all
more
have a
people in
purpose.
religion are also
Yeah.
becoming
Like
more
everything.
open. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has a
And
purpose.
yeah, everybody's at different levels of whatever, and they're supposed to be. And you know what I mean? There's no right or yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
judgment.
Um.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and hopefully, we won't be judged too harshly the other way around for the things we talk about.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I feel like yeah,
Yeah.
all religions are serving a very serious purpose, and that they're all speaking the same thing, which is love. Just like NDEs are speaking about love, channelers are talking about love. Like that's what they all talk about, and that's what we truly are, and that yeah, we're like Ram Dass, we're all just walking each other home. I probably said that not all the way right, but that is what we're doing, we're
No, I get what you mean. Yeah. How did you meet? You said you met Allie through like the social circles or
yeah,
whatever. Or
we're both on a Discord that was created for a near death experience, metaphysical paranormal
right.
podcast. And so from there so then she created her Discord server, and it's I guess two and a half, or I don't know, it's been over 2 years, and so it's
Hmm.
grown into what it is now, and it's like a family, I guess, of sorts. Yeah, we feel very much like, yeah, we were drawn to, like, there's something even behind us coming together in the beginning of that server that felt very much like that from the get-go, which was really neat. And yeah, there's no way I would have ever leave something like that after, because nobody would listen to me before, you know what I mean? Like, it gave me a
Yeah.
people who, like,
Outlet.
like-minded people, yeah, who understood and was open and non-judgmental, which is like was awesome for me, because I really dealt with a lot of that. And now I no longer
Yeah.
deal with it, unfortunately, because I'm not going and trying to tell everybody that doesn't want to hear it anymore, which might not be a good thing,
Yeah.
actually, in some ways. But this, what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
just helps me with all that issue, because maybe not in my immediate physical people, but if I'm doing something like
Yeah.
this, then I'm able to reach out to whoever's willing to listen. They can turn off the thing if they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's why we're all kind of doing the whole, like, what we're doing with the putting videos and talking about it
Right.
openly through, social media.
Yeah. And and that's the thing too, is like it's weird. Sometimes like I don't look at life the same, so it's just certain like gatherings are very strange for me. Like for me, not that I can't have fun, depends on what's happening, but like it
Yeah, the
can be like,
superficial, like, shallowness of where people.
yeah, or I'm at a party and I'm just like, like twiddling my
Yeah,
thumbs and I can't fully open up, or they'll talk about this or gossip about someone else or something, and I'm just like, I don't find myself judging people like I
right.
used to or anything, like a different mindset, like, and it makes it weird. And sometimes I just get quiet. I'll just be quiet, chilling there.
Yeah.
So it happens. I get it. I
Hmm.
understand. But yeah, they are cool though. So it's like I'm glad that I brought up, and with the whole UAP society thing, which that's what I joined first. Um, Great Druid is the one who told me to join up, and I procrastinated, and then I was like, all right, let me do it. And then the next thing I know, I'm like speaking to Grant Crammond, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I was like, oh
Yeah,
my
I feel
God.
super blessed to, like, be able to be a part of all.
Yeah. You spoke to another guest, McDonald.
Bill
I
McDonald,
saw you were,
Reverend Bill. Hmm.
yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
he
awesome.
is. And he himself has really put himself out there with his experiences. I mean, he's done over 800, like, different um interviews and things like that. So it's really, I mean,
Yeah.
speaking from
He,
source is coming up. We have a lot still coming, that's already, like, been done. They just need to be edited and put out. And thank goodness for Allie. She's really doing all the hard work. I mean, it's her
yeah.
channel. So I'm just really along for the ride, and I feel super lucky to be a part of, like, this. And she also, like, we just really resonate, and we're on the same, like, you can, like, same thing, I think, is what
Yeah.
you're doing. We're all following that push for love, I guess. And yeah.
Yeah. But McDonald, he actually was crazy. I saw him on one of my favorite NDE channels. Is
Yeah.
Anthony Sheen. He has like really good, like professional, like bringing to light near death experiences in like a professional way with cameras that are really good and
Yeah.
good
He is
production
all about the.
quality, which I like. A lot of the old NDEers and stuff. Not that there was anything wrong with telling their stories on certain platforms, but it wasn't as like professionally done like
Hmm.
his
I
was that
never
I've
got
seen.
way into his, but I've seen
So
a lot of.
some of the people you may have already seen in other YouTube videos, and then he takes them and he puts them into the like limelight with the special camera, and it looks really good. And he has a lot of the big guests like McDonald and some other people. Peter Anthony, I think, is another one that I like. He's like a psychic
I
now,
don't know the name. I don't know
and
the
he
name.
actually worked for he helped the FBI for a while too after his NDE. He didn't do any
Right.
of this
It
before
opened
the
up.
NDE, and then he was able to and then he was able to communicate, and he would help with like murder cases and things like
Yeah.
that, which is really cool.
Yeah. Edgar Casey. I don't know why but
Yeah,
yeah, he's, like, awesome. And I have a few of his books, but the medical intuitive thing, I feel like is a neat
yeah,
thing to have. I almost feel like you might have something with that. I don't know. Am I wrong on that? Do you feel since the
Oh, the medical. Maybe well, here's a. I've been told by a strange. Well, she wasn't a stranger. It was a friend of my grandmother's. I was going through weird stuff was happening, and my grandmother was in the building. She had a friend who was gifted, but I met the woman, but she never told me that she was gifted. She's like, "I'm gonna contact this woman for you, and we're gonna talk to her because she knows about stuff." And I started to speak to her, and it was very interesting because she's like, "I've been watching you for a long time," and I'm like, "What?" And she's like, yeah, you're gifted. You know that. She's like, you're a healer. You're gonna be a healer. She's like, I see you healing with your hands. And at the time, I was like, what the fuck is this lady talking about? And then I went to like another reading, completely different person, completely different state. And she's like, you're a healer. And another person told me that. And I was like, why does I'm like, I don't know. Like after so many coincidences, it's like you start to believe it, I guess.
you've seen a lot of
But
psychics and
there are,
different things, it seems like, huh? I
yeah,
haven't. I really wonder
I've
what I would be told. I'm curious. You know, 'cause I've
that's the thing. Like I do a lot of investigating too because I know some people don't have the best of intentions. Not everyone, but there are certain people that I'm drawn to because they will say like the woman who was my teacher for a time when I lived in Denver. I read her like blog intro whatever, and I was like, I think she's who I have to go see because I was at a time. Talk about synchronicity. I was wondering what can I do to get answers about this? Like, what could I do? And I looked over and I see a box, a cardboard box, and the box was medium sized, but in giant letters it said medium. So I was like, oh yeah, let me go look up some mediums, right? So I go to look this up. And then I find her page and I'm like, she's the one I'm going to go to. And I knew I was right because based on her language, how she talks about everything, and I knew she was the real deal because as soon as before I could even start talking or telling her anything, she shut me up. She was like, hold on, hold on, hold on. There's a lot of people here and they want to say a lot. And I'm like, okay. And she starts telling me things about my grandmother. Like, I didn't even mention my grandmother. She's like, I have your grandmother here. And she starts saying all this stuff. I don't know how, but, going through life, you forget people sometimes. And I had forgotten about, but who passed away. And she's talking about him. And I was like, what the hell? It's just weird how that happens. So you just got to look for, be intuitive about it, I guess. Also, like
mhm.
feel it out. You kind of read their stuff. You'll know when someone's. I feel like you'll know when someone's bullshitting sometimes, and it can happen, but don't let it sway you or think everything is bullshit just because of that one person. It's never happened to me. I've always encountered like genuine people so far. But with the medical stuff, yeah, I have done like when I'm doing Reiki, and I was doing it on my aunt because she asked me to. I don't know a lot about her medical history or anything like that, but like I was hovering over her leg and I just felt like I had to ask. I was like, there's something going on with this leg. And she's like, yeah. And she started telling me about it. I don't know how I know that. It just comes.
Yeah. I mean, apparently that's how it works. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
an ability, I guess, that we all have, and maybe some are born with more of it, or it can come through an NDE or some other kind of download or whatever might happen, spiritual experience that opens something up
Yeah.
for them, or an individual, I should say, or you or whoever, but yeah, but
Yeah.
hone, hone
Gary
in on
Nolan
it,
was talking
as
about that.
well, and learn it.
The scientist Gary Nolan was talking about just the other day, actually, with the UFO stuff. He said that they were doing tests and he did them on himself. And he found that the people who encounter this stuff, there's something different about the blood. Not that everyone, you have to be born special or something. It's like everyone technically has the capacity, but it's almost like people with certain bloodlines, it's almost like certain things and maybe in the DNA or something is just unlocked and it's easier. Not that one person couldn't learn how to do it. It's just easier. And I say it's kind of like a child who's 7 years old, but he paints like an amazing artist that is maybe like 30 or 20 years old. Like, how is this kid doing that? They just have that natural capacity to do it. Not that you couldn't do it
Right.
or
Yeah, but
anyone else couldn't
that
do it,
goes into say, like,
but
we're
it's
all
just,
different, and
yeah,
we all the
yeah.
information, our
We all have
consciousness,
our
yeah,
our
the light
gifts.
and information comes through our diamonds, like I was saying earlier, and we
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
different gifts. Yeah, just like you just said. So, yeah. And it's about trying to figure out that gift. But I think really, I mean, even if you don't figure out a gift or whatever, like everything really is okay. Like, even if you're just like getting by with life,
Yeah.
trying to stay positive, like
Yeah.
that's perfectly okay. You know what I mean? You don't have to go like do anything
Yeah.
amazing.
And that could be exactly what you plan
Yeah.
for your life, excuse me. And in another life you could be the best medium in the world all of a sudden. You don't really know. Like, there's so many
Yeah.
experiences to be had, and so many I don't know. I get fascinated by it all, and I'm just like, there's so much more, and I want to know about it all. And it's just like,
And it's
that's why
funny
I
to
get
think
excited
because
about
we
it.
we
But
already know from learning all this that there is more, and we're gonna see it and learn it all. You know what I mean? But we're just trapped in this body, and we can
yeah.
only like imagine from within this
Yeah.
body that we're in. So funny.
Yeah. You said you tried stuff. So have you tried, like, you ever meditated
um.
or
Oh, I never in my life did do that. That I recently through CE5 meditations and things like that. But prior to the CE5, I did.
I want to do that. I haven't done that in a group.
Yeah, it's really fun. And yeah, the synchronicities and the different things that happen, it's really, really
Yeah.
interesting. But what was I saying? Oh, so before that, before doing C5s, I was doing some group meditation with Wim Hof meditation. So it wasn't like to contact aliens necessarily,
Yeah, it's just a
but it
meditation.
was
Okay.
to have like spiritual, like third eye. I mean, there was like
Right.
that aspect. So I mean, I don't know, it wasn't focused necessarily around like trying to, but they did get incorporated into those experiences as well. So I remember even before we were doing C5, this is like 2 years ago with the uh Wim Hof, but yeah, that breathing and that meditation, you can get, visions and third eye visions and things like that, and almost like OVE type stuff. You feel your energetic or spiritual body, kind of lifting.
Yeah. Did you personally get anything or?
So yeah, I mean, visions and things like that. Nothing real extreme for me. Other people
Mm-hmm.
in the group have a
Mm.
lot more vivid and detailed experiences, stuff that they can
Yeah.
speak on. But yeah, I think for me, it's my own personal makeup or whatever, and like what I've been able to like my skills that I haven't. My focus in general, like as far as I guess what you might say ADHD or whatever, I got that kind of stuff going on like in my human self, I guess. But for me,
Yeah.
it's always been hard for me to take time to try to like meditate. This is something I do 100% want to like eventually I want to become more practice
Yeah.
meditating daily, like more of a like ritual and
I need to
regiment and all
practice
this.
too.
So I don't have all that going
Yeah.
on. So yeah, right now it's just like 85 meditations every
Yeah, me either.
Saturday.
Yeah.
We're all doing to some extent, you know what I mean? But
I've tried. I've been successful in having some weird experiences a couple of times, and even to a point where I put myself into a trance once, which is weird because when I snapped out of it, I was like, "Whoa, what happened? Like, why am I here?" Even though I'm in my own apartment, I was like, "What's going on?" And there are times where, like, when you close your eyes and you just
mhm.
see darkness, right? And well, when I get to a certain state, I notice that like my thoughts start to just shut up, and then sometimes like images will start to come, like just like you were saying, like into my head. It's almost like I can see
Mhm.
because my eyes
Mhm.
close. It's weird. So I've had that. I haven't been successful enough where I can do it every single time. Like there's still times where I'll try to meditate and I'll have all my thoughts, blah blah blah, and then and then I'm like, all right, that was an unsuccessful like session tonight, and then I have to go to sleep, and then whatever. But
You should join up.
it is a
Have
thing.
you
Yeah,
joined
same.
any of the C vibes with us over?
No, no, I didn't know. I was gonna ask, but I didn't
Yeah,
know
you're more than welcome.
anything.
Um,
Yeah,
you know, it's basically, I guess you could say, rules or guidelines, and that's to be in a heart space, a space of love and good energy and reaching out, for humanity from
yeah,
beings of highest love and light, and for the great good
yeah. I
for
can do
all
that.
and everything. But so yeah, it's basically just being in a that kind of state of mind and intentions and all that. But yeah, you're more than welcome if you're interested, obviously. I mean,
Yeah, of course. I always wanted to like do one, and even if it's online, I would like to do one also like outside, like find an
hmm
area one day and then be able to like do that because people are taking pictures and stuff. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
that's
I've
so
seen a
cool.
few things with my
Um,
physical eye as far as the you can call it a UAP. I
that's
mean,
cool.
we don't really know exactly, but
Were they like what did you see?
yeah,
Like, was
it's
it
just
like
like
an
a light,
orb or
and it
like
looks like, it could be like a star, but
you know
or a little slightly bigger, but and it's just
moving?
moving along, and I've seen multiple ones where they're almost like intersecting, but so
That's cool.
yeah, I mean, it's wild.
I've talked about it before on the show a couple times, but I've had actual like weird visitation experience type stuff. I've also seen shadow people. That's happened a lot actually. The shadow
Ooh, I
people
have a
one
weird shadow person
throughout the
one.
years.
I guess you can call it a shadow. I don't. Yeah, I
You saw one
guess.
too?
I mean, you might.
Cause
I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know if it would be called a shadow person or not. Like
mhm,
again, I don't delve into the dark aspects of things. Like that's just not my
right.
thing. I would rather what?
To be fair, I don't, and trying to remember where I saw this, but I'm starting to think that not all shadow people are bad. I also think that some of them, that's just how it
Yeah.
translates from our reality's
Right.
perception. Like us,
Trust.
they might be like George talked about one. Yeah, George talked about one where he, instead of fear, he emitted love. He's like, all right, let me try
Oh, and
this.
it got
He
smaller
emitted
or
love
something like that.
and light
Mm.
towards it. Yeah, and it changed. That hasn't happened to me, but it's always kind of unsettling when you see one because you're like, holy
Mm.
shit, this is weird. Thinking back, they never really did anything to me. Some of them never really did anything. There was one that really did. It felt negative. Like that was not. I don't think that was a loving being at all. But I don't think they're all bad. And there's some cases where someone was told by the shadow being, I'm not here to hurt you or anything like that. So, but I'm like, okay, maybe they're not all bad, but I feel like it'd be nice if they didn't look like that.
I never had any
It
direct
would help.
experience in like I feel like I see a lot of like shadows in my peripheral and things like that. So nothing like direct head on, but there was the one experience that I guess it was a shadow person. It had like it was huge. It was standing over my bed. So I woke up, and this is of course when I'm not in a good. This is before my spiritual awakening. I was in the lower
Right.
vibrational, like just sadness and like oh well, like whatever. So yeah, just like in that way. But of course, I was always spiritually connected to some extent because all this happened, and this is my thought process. So let me just tell you the story anyway. So I wake up in the middle of the night, and to the left of the bed there's this huge like being like standing over me, like hovering over my, like looking at me, like this. And so
Hmm.
its head was really big. I mean, it was like this blackness outline of a body, and
Yeah.
and its eyes, I want to say, were either red or orange or yellow or something, but it had like another color, one of those three colors. I don't know why, I can't remember exactly what color, but anyway, so yeah, it had these colored eyes looking at me. And so um I was very frightened. Obviously, I woke up and I was just like kind of, I don't know, my immediate thing was to just get up. So what I did was I got up and I ran out of the room and I went into my garage, and I started just crying. Like I was crying. It shook me, and I was already like whatever state, and so I was just like bawling, crying, like. So of course I'm like praying. I started praying, like asking for help, and like because I didn't know what was going on. And I had my cell phone with me, and it automatically started playing the song by Queensryche. And this is an old song back in the day, but Silent Lucidity by Queensryche. Anyway, you'll have to go listen to that song, but I mean, it's just like it'll just blow your mind, the lyrics and what it says. And the song that automatically played, uh, it brought me comfort because I was listening, I was bawling, I'm listening to the song, I'm letting it play, and I'm like, I felt like because I was praying for help, that that was like them. I say my grandmother. I don't know. I think I even prayed to my grandmother. Yeah. So anyway,
They
I
can
was
do
just
that.
like,
So
somehow
yeah, I
they
think
played
that
the song, and it was like complete comfort. in the words of the lyrics of that song. I want to try to think of it, but I don't want to start singing or anything. But you can look it up. But anyway, so yeah, in the end, thinking back on the whole thing now, it makes me wonder, like, was that thing bad, or was it, watching over me somehow, and was it related? I don't know, because like, but either way, so if it was
It could have been,
bad,
but
because my own negative thoughts, I had protection, I had whatever, I was heard when I reached out for that, whatever help, make sure that everything's okay, and then the song played. So in the end, like, I was comforted and okay in the end. But yeah, like, looking back now and telling the story to others in the past couple of years, since that's happened, it really makes me wonder, like, was that an evil, bad entity, and who was it that, comforted me through the phone and the song, and I don't know. So I'm not real sure. But you know what?
Yeah.
Thinking out loud,
And it gets
maybe it
weird
is
because you
negative,
don't
and
know.
maybe it's attached to my negative ways and whatever thoughts and sadness and thinking everything's, going to hell or whatever. Not that that's really how I thought. I'm kind of feeding into that, but yeah, I definitely wasn't consciously creating or like realizing that how important my thoughts and feelings and all, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't in that state of mind. No.
At that time.
So, yeah, a lot's changed since then. So I do feel like, yeah, maybe that was an energy, something that I attached to myself, you know what I mean, through everything. I don't know. And it makes me think of another time too. I used to work in this old, like, plantation type restaurant, and this is a very long time ago. But a lady there was, I guess, a medium or psychic. She had abilities, and she was the bartender. And yeah. Anyway,
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know why I'm saying this. It's not really a good thing, but whatever. She told me one day, like, she was just looked at me, and she's just like just looking at me all weird, and told me that I had like all these things, these, I don't know, shadow people maybe behind me. Like, I don't know. It freaked her out. She freaked out. And of course, it was like, I never got closure on that or anything.
Making
Like,
you feel freaked out.
So I spent, a long time thinking, okay,
Damn.
I must have like some weird attachments on me. But if I had to think now, looking back, it is just the stuff that I went through in my childhood. Like, freaking. It wasn't a horrible childhood. I want to make sure I don't come off like that, because I know some people have like serious things to go through, and it wasn't anything like that. It was more like, just not fully supported, kind of neglect, on the verge of neglect and all this kind of stuff. Like, it just wasn't the best upbringing and everything else. But I feel like to go through that, and if what I'm saying is true, that we create whatever with our experience and how we feel about, if we're holding negative stuff within us, then we could possibly be creating different, like, what you might call shadow beings or negative whatever. It's like our own creation, possibly. I'm not saying it is. I'm just like, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going off tangent.
No, it's okay, because I think it could be all of that and in between, because if our thoughts create reality, who knows? It really could be. And yeah, there's also the chance that we could see something and it scares us and then we think it's evil, but then there's also sometimes it really is something that's dark because you just feel it when you're close by. And I've had some of that too. I had something similar happen with a story like yours, where I was told something was following me once. So I know, and you're just like, shit, what do I do with that? Like, like,
I
oh
think
god.
I
So I
think
just
I
like
finally
picked the
might have
short
felt
straw.
scared
Like,
that I went to Sonoma. Not Sonoma. Where is it with the vortexes in Arizona? Sedona. Sorry, Sedona.
oh, got it. Yeah.
So I went,
There we go.
to Sedona, and I had a Reiki session there. And so I that's I may have even told, I don't know, I might have told her about that. Yeah, because it stuck with me. I mean, this lady told me that I had like a bunch of, shadows or whatever attached behind me, and so like up for a good decade plus, I'm like, I hung on to that. I'm like, this, I must have these things. She told me I did. But anyway, so yeah, I feel like when I may have first at least started like maybe working on some of that. So yeah, right at the beginning of my spiritual awakening, I went to Sedona and scheduled a Reiki. It was my first Reiki section. I keep wanting to say section. I don't know, session, if I can talk. But so yeah, and Sedona is awesome. That's a really awesome place.
I'm jealous. I would love to go there. That's cool. I mean, I've been to California, but like I want to go to like some place like Sedona and like the open. Like I actually want to go camping or something in the night sky, and I still want to go to
Yeah,
Alaska,
that
see
would
the
be
Northern
awesome.
Lights
Oh,
and
I
all
did have
that.
an experience once.
I want
I
to do
went
that.
on it was like a month and a half or something road trip with my best friend, and we were driving. We did not plan ahead and get a hotel, so we ended up having to drive through the night to get to the Grand Canyon. And so it was like right before the sun coming out, so it was still dark and everything, and we're driving into the Grand Canyon, and we see what I guess you can call a fireball, which I learned through the UAP Society video, that the whole
Mm.
like competition or whatever challenge that happened. But I learned about fireballs
Mhm.
for that. But what I was woken up, she was driving, she woke me up to look at it, but it took up the whole windshield, and it was like the slow motion, and it was like very bright white, huge. It didn't make any noise, but like the outer edges were colored almost a greenish blue. It didn't have like a
That's
long tail,
crazy.
but behind it was like a short little fat, it wasn't just circle moving. It had like a slight tail to it, but not anything. I don't know. It was different.
See, see, there are times that I would love to get up close, because like you hear these stories, but then I also heard the stories of people coming close to crafts and then they get cancer, and I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's nice to just look at it, like there's a part of me that wants to go touch something or be like, not that I don't believe it, but I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like I want to like, what does that feel like? But then I'm like, what if it is fire? Like, like I don't know, but that's cool. So you saw that? She woke you up, you saw it. Did it like just
No,
dissipate or like
it just seemed really to
it's
take up the whole windshield. It was like slow motion, and then I don't know. We were like obviously going up to the Grand. I mean, I don't know. It seems to just kind of disappear. I remember trying to like see if I could see where it was gonna land. I'm not like I'm doing the whole body motion of turning. I'm sorry, but yeah, I was like in the car trying to see like where it was
no,
gonna
no, it's
go,
okay.
and I'm just reenacting it for you.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it was
cool.
super exciting, and yeah, that trip
Yeah.
we ended up having a huge falling out actually after one of them. It's probably because we drove through the night and all this stuff, but yeah, there was like this emotional outburst once we got to the Grand Canyon, and we like went our separate ways for a little while, and we had some like
Oh,
alone
that's sad.
time, and then we rested and got back on it, whatever. But we were on a big trip together in the car, so yeah, I mean that happens. One trip. Yeah, my best
This was like
friend, but
friends or
anyway.
like
So yeah, but you know how it is with tight quarters and
yeah.
long trips together. I mean, it's likely to happen. So, but I don't know. Maybe some crazy energetic thing happened. I don't know what happened, but there was another thing about that. But we were also I think it was in
Mhm.
Colorado. We were camping in Colorado, and yeah,
I've done that at least.
and I want to say I don't know if we were like primitive camping, but it was like there was nobody. We were in the national forest somewhere. I don't know, but there was nobody really else
Mhm.
around. But her son was with us, and there was two men like at a fire a distance away, but because of their fire it was nighttime, so at this point it's nighttime. We have our fire going, everything's set up, but the only other people we see are these two men with a daughter. So she had her son, and we're two girls, women or whatever, we're young women with the young son, and it was opposite. So they were two men with the same age daughter as you know what I'm saying? It was like a mirror opposite weird thing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we were just like looking at a distance at them, and I was getting weird, but we were both being weirded out by these dudes, and we're like watching from a distance, and they're just both staring with these like eyes that almost didn't seem like to blink, but not that we could see if they were blinking. It was just this dead on stare. They were both looking. It was
Mhm.
very weird over a fire. It was
That's
very
creepy.
creepy and very weird. But what's even weirder is that the little girl, okay, I think he was 5 at the time. The girl's around the same age. So the girl came over to our site to visit with, you know, the boy who, you know, which we didn't think too much of it and we weren't really watching, but she went in the tent with him. And, at the time we weren't thinking it's just two like little kids just doing whatever, like, hey, there's another kid, like,
Yeah.
so it was just that kind of thing
Yeah.
at the time. But I still am hung up on like the fact that they were so weird and different and staring at us, and then it was like opposite, and then that kid, that who just lets their kid come over, like when you didn't even talk to these people, over to another campsite. You know what I mean? Like, that's unusual. That's
Yeah.
abnormal. You know what I mean? So now since I'm open up to all these different experiencers and hearing everybody's stories, and I've heard so much at this point that it's just like, who knows? Like, I wonder. And then apparently, I mean, a human could be an alien. You never know. They just like
Yeah.
shapeshift and stuff like that.
Oh god. Yeah, I've heard of stories and even like the Bigfoot ones and
Well, same could be said
I
for
think it's real
angels.
too, that
There's
stuff.
also a human that
Yeah.
helps you miraculously and saves your life and disappears. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's an angel. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Or
There are a lot of
I don't
cases
know.
like
So
that. They even the medium teacher I was talking about, she has a story like that. And that's what made me want to go out to her. And she had a car accident. I think she was in a convertible or in a car, something with her friend, and she drove off a
wow.
bridge. And right when and this is what comes through in like the books, where the spirit guys talk through in medium session, like Robert Schwartz and stuff like that, that they have the ability to do that when they need to. A lot of times they don't really get involved because it's like the free will thing, but sometimes something can't be avoided without their intervention, so they will come and step in and do stuff that people will just listen and do it, and then afterwards
Yeah.
they're like, what the hell was that? And one case, one woman was on the floor and she saw someone who looked like an ex of hers, but that face gave her comfort. And she's like, what is he doing here? And the the EMTs couldn't get a line in her and to get her into the ambulance and everything because they were trying to do something with her blood or whatever. They thought they were going to have to call a chopper to come pick her up because they're like, oh, this is an emergency. We can't get a line in her. We don't know. Like, we're going to have to do something else. We got to get a chopper. But he showed up out of nowhere. He gets the line in one go when they kept effing it up. And then they put her in the truck. And he's like, she doesn't need a helicopter. Take her to the hospital. And then disappears. And they just listen to him. This guy has no badge. And then the two EMTs look at each other and they're like, what the hell? Like, do you know who that was? And they're like, no, I have no idea who that was. And the guide comes through in the session, in the medium session, regression session. And he's like, yeah, I did that. We have the capability to do that. And it's kind of like a Jedi mind trick. He's like, we use our energy and it just kind of like, I don't want to say overpowers because they're not doing it
Negative.
in some kind of bad way, yeah, negative way, but they can get you to follow instructions and like listen, and then they'll disappear after that. No one knows. And he's like, and the form I chose was just something that would comfort you. And in my teacher's circumstance, she was going off the bridge and she said it was all of a sudden, it was like time stopped and it was like going really, really like slow. And she heard an audible voice. This is according to her. She heard an audible voice. It told her, okay, you're going to want to do this. She's like, you're going to take the seatbelt off and you're going to lean sideways really hard. And she said it was like very urgent. And she just listened. And she's like, are you okay? Like, are you with me? You're going to do this. You have to take your seatbelt off and you're going to lean as hard as possible down away from like the windshield and everything. And she did so. And what the amazing thing was that the whole top part of the
Oh, wow.
car got ripped off. So she's like, if I didn't do that, if I didn't follow those instructions,
Yeah.
I would have been decapitated. And not only that, but after she went through that experience, the and she was in the car, the guy had taken her, she took her to the side of the road. The EMTs get there and the guy just vanishes. He's not there. Nobody, like, normally when you save someone, you're like, "Are
Hmm.
you all right?" Like, EMTs are here. I'm gonna leave
Yeah,
now.
I've
Like,
heard a
that
lot
didn't
of
happen. He just
I want to say a lot
vanished.
of
He just
stories where there's like,
Yeah,
yeah, that same the situation, yeah, and
they
then
do
it's like,
that.
where'd they go? Who was it? Like, wow, yeah. And then
But
the past lives too, the regression stuff, like the healing that happens through the past life regressions, and even
yeah,
just regression for this life, not past life. So either you can do, regression therapy to heal like traumas within the one lifetime you're in, or you can go even further back into the past lives, because apparently we can hold memories or things within our bodies of traumas. It's basically
yeah,
trauma that
baggage.
we experienced from other past lives that we held on to. So like our soul or spirit or whatever can, if something is traumatic enough, can it like imprint within us and cause problems, but we can actually heal that. It's wild, all that, like how every
Yeah,
multi-dimensional
that's the
we
thing.
are, and everything really is. It's
Sometimes there's even
yeah,
visible scars
birthmarks.
on the body where
Mm-hmm.
someone was murdered or
Yeah,
something like that. It's crazy.
it is.
And Dolores talks about how she says it's kind of amazing how, like, most people don't even realize this, but like a lot of the healing can be done when you talk to the subconscious. She says it's not really the subconscious. She just didn't have a term for it at the time, so she just uses that term. But that higher self is another word for it, the soul, whatever you want to call it. But she says that it's when you can talk directly with it and find out the reason for where these traumas come from, the like you said, the illnesses just go away. And it can be all sorts of things. Like, one doctor she did a session with, he used to have asthma, and after the session he doesn't have asthma anymore. And he had a past life issue where he was like, I think he had like a stab wound through the heart or through the chest, in the lung area. So it's like there was that. And there's another woman who, um, she had this like weird rash around her body, and she went to doctors, dermatologists, like they gave her stuff, but nothing would work at all to get rid of it. And then she goes to Dolores, and she ends up getting a session done. And she was a man in a previous life, and in that life, she ended up, like, she had a certain religion, and the people of the town found out or whatever, and they judged her and they burned her at the stake,
Mm-hmm.
him at the stake. And it was like the rash was kind of like some kind of like, I don't know what you want to call it, like
Yeah.
psychic embodiment or
Yeah.
reflection of that. And it carries over because it's like still the same soul, but there are those connections that reach out. And as you do healing and heal yourself, you also help those other
Yeah.
lives that are still going on concurrently,
Yeah. And
which is very
the
fascinating.
future and past, like, visions, and
Yeah,
yeah, which is
all at
really neat.
once.
And then the whole idea of soul, like groups, like, incarnate, that you incarnate with, and
Yep.
then how a mother and
Mm-hmm.
child could be like opposite roles switched in one lifetime, or it could be a husband and a wife, you know what I mean, or like a mother and a great grandfather, you know what I mean, like it just, they all which just
Yeah.
further goes into like, if we are switching up these roles with each other, and we have these groups that we're coming in and like doing all this with to learn and grow from, you know what I mean, like, but the fact that we have been all these different roles, I mean, it just further goes into, I guess, that we are all one, you know what I mean, and I don't know, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The and for people that don't know, role switching is, as I understand it, one of the reasons we role switch is that the soul wants to see every side of an issue. So you are the perpetrator, you are the
Yeah, there's
victim, you
that
are the
aspect,
rapist, you're the
not just
it,
switching
it
up
goes
with
on and on
whatever,
and
but
on.
yeah, the roles
Yeah.
and the things that happen.
Yeah, and it's not out of punishment. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily. This is just one type of situation, but like if somebody was murdered, you may be the victim in another life. It doesn't always have to go that way. That's not the only way you can learn a lesson. It's up to the soul or person's choice or the being's choice how it wants to observe the issue. But then also there's role switching, like you said, in soul groups, where in our next lives, we can be the parents of our
Mhm.
parents, and they're now our kids and that kind of thing. So that's the funny weird thing, and it gets weird too because you could be the parent of like
Yeah.
of a spouse that you're
Yeah.
with in a romantic relationship, but in the next life now they're your children. It's like it's weird, but there
Uh-huh.
is that back and forth when you look into these regression
Yeah.
cases,
And
which
then
is
I've
really
heard
interesting.
too, yeah, where your enemy, is like, yeah, it's all like planned. I don't know. Yeah. You see?
Yeah.
And yeah, we all agreed
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, even the enemy, the person who does the bad thing, also agrees to do that.
to
And it
to
just
be the
makes you
enemy. Yeah.
realize, I mean, if that's happening, really, how I don't want to minimize our life at all, because it is important and it has lots of purpose, and
Right.
we're important. You know what I mean? We are really important, and we have purpose. I don't know, so I'm not minimizing this life experience on Earth or anything like that, but on the bigger picture, it's really not as important as it seems to us here. This things that we're going through or witnessing or experiencing or whatever. And so I don't know. That's what I really love about it, is that the understanding of all this really helps you enjoy life even more. Like I do know what
Yeah, you do. You
um
do. Yeah, I know you
I
do.
guess I'm catching. I do
it's
catch
it, it's
myself, like, which I'm
complex.
sure you do too, to not say certain things because you
Yeah.
hear yeah, you already know what
It's
you're about to
habit.
say, and it's really some of your old programming stuff, and you catch yourself, and so I don't know. So sometimes I'll be like almost about to say something, but then I'm not, because I'm
Yeah.
aware, like, I probably shouldn't say that. And then I'm like, that
Yeah. And then sometimes you might think how people might see
yeah,
you
and it's
saying
just
certain
like,
things.
yeah.
So it's just
So
like,
a lot of, I think a lot, I guess, which is what we are and what we're doing and how we
yeah.
create.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think a lot. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also an overthinker, so I get it. And that's it. Knowing this stuff, learning this stuff helped,
Opened up
but
like,
it also, uh, yeah, yeah. And there are things that I would say to myself because our words are things too. So I would try to stop myself from saying stuff too because I'm like, damn it, I say that all the time. Or, certain words or certain things that, again, like you said,
mm-hmm.
programming that happens. And it's challenging to get rid of sometimes because it's
Mm-hmm.
just
But isn't it great
habit.
that we're
So you're so
aware of it,
used to
and
it.
like, and even though it's totally drilled in
Yeah.
and we have to like constantly fight to not do this
Yeah.
stuff?
That's
Yeah,
the
it's
that's the beginning of it because
uh-huh.
there are people who are not aware
Uh,
and they don't do it and they don't put in the effort to like kind of,
or consciously make
heal or whatever. So
choices,
it's just,
that or be conscious of the
yeah,
effects of.
the
But
choices we
then,
make. Yeah.
like Ali, it says, conscious, live life consciously. That's her little.
Yeah. Yep. That's
Yeah, it
accurate. That
does.
actually sums it up. Like we were saying earlier, when you have more awareness, you become more aware. So you're just aware of those things and you live life more
Mm-hmm.
consciously. So yeah,
Mhm.
I agree with
Mhm.
that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fun to like find where I'm landing everywhere, especially considering I was anti like social media, and like here I am. So I feel like that's even more of like, I'm doing, this is the path I'm supposed to be going down. I'm doing exactly. I feel really good about it. So that tells me there that emotionally, if I'm feeling like this is right, then that's, I think that's how we each individually figure our paths out, is by how we feel about stuff, which all the people say that stuff about that too, like channelers and
Yeah.
whoever else. I'm all about spreading the love and the light and the knowledge and the truth of who and what we are, and that we are all spiritual beings having a temporary human experience, and that the only thing that matters is love, and that we all love ourselves, so we can therefore fully love others. And it just goes on from there, and that's what we're doing. And so I'm here to spread the message anywhere and everywhere as we can. Yeah.
Hmm. No, that's perfect. And that's all for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so you can be notified when I drop the next episode. And until then, I'll catch you guys on the other side.